5:30. I'll call the H&I committee to order. First agenda item, approval of minutes. Did anyone have any comments first? No? All right. Is there a motion to approve? Oh, yep, Katie?
I had one comment.
Mhm.
There was, I think it was on, it's just that my name is misspelled. But
Oh, yeah, well, that should be fixed.
okay. It was on page 3 of 4 in the third paragraph down.
I can never remember if it's 2 Ds or 2 Ns, but yeah, I will make sure it's
I know
correct.
it is confusing. Hello, Taylor. It's lovely to see you.
All right. Did anyone have any other changes or updates that they wanted? All right. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Push the button down. The button on that microphone.
All right. Looks like the motion passes. All right. We do have a couple of new members. And so what we'd like to do is just kind of do a round robin and introduce ourselves really quickly. I'm Emily Bourne. I'm the chair of the committee. I live in Fitchburg in the right near, well, I'm on Sentinel Pass. I'm in the Belmar Renaissance on the Park neighborhood. All right. Does someone else want to go? Yeah, awesome.
Yep, I'll go. I'm Ryan Estrella. I live in Fitchburg as well, but I also work in the Allied. I'm a social worker in the Allied Drive neighborhood, which connects to the Belmar area.
I'm Katie. Katie Trudenick. I live in the Jamestown neighborhood. I'm a DVM or a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, Master of Public Health student at UW-Madison.
Maybe the person that introduced themselves could just pass it on to someone so we can keep it going. So, Ari or Julia?
Oh.
Yep.
Push the button.
I am Julia Ratafrata. I am an alder for District 2, and I am representing here SIDA in this committee. So welcome, everyone.
Ari, you want to go ahead?
My name is Ari Lowe, and I am a substitute teacher at Leopold Elementary School, representing the North Fish Hatchery Road neighborhood, and I am new to this committee.
And I think Elizabeth is our only remaining committee member.
Hi, everyone. Elizabeth Cox. I live in District 2 on Yarmouth Greenway, and I am a pediatrician at UW-Madison.
And I'm Wade Thompson, city staff and staff liaison to this committee.
All right. Wade, do we have any public appearances for non-agenda items?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Agenda review. Did anyone want to make any updates to the order? Joe, do we have everyone that we need to for the Teen Center update? Or should we push that back a little?
Believe so. I'll text Matthias to see if he's coming, but if not, we can cover.
Joe, are you wanting to share your screen or?
At this point, I don't need to share my screen. This is going to be a pretty informal presentation. Obviously, we're going to have something a little bit more formal in the coming months, but I just wanted to get, the folks that are working on this project in front of the committee just to get any feedback needed as we prepare for kind of future presentations.
And actually, maybe if we have a little bit of time, just with so many new members, I think I connected with all of you before the meeting today, but any just general questions on kind of why we're here, what this committee is about? Any questions in that regard? And I think as we move through the agenda today, it'll become hopefully pretty clear on what this committee is about, but certainly if there's any, kind of leading questions, we can talk through those now as well. We're waiting for Joe.
Okay, did you all want me to start?
That would be great. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Or what we could do is we could, move on to agenda item B or 5B and then come back if you'd prefer.
No, I would actually be fine with starting. Again,
Okay.
This is more informal and informational. I wanted to bring to the committee sort of updates on the Teen Center study. And I'm going to sort of present some basic information, a broad overview, and then I'm going to pass it off to other people involved in the project to give details on specifics on, sort of who's involved in different parts of the project. So most of you are familiar with the movement forward toward a teen center in the city of Fitchburg, but I'm going to start as if you're all empty vessels, because I can't assume that everybody knows anything about the project. But to get started, I'm Joe Maldonado. I've been on the Fitchburg Common Council since 2020, and in 2020, I introduced a capital improvement plan amendment and eventually budget items to be able to move forward towards building a permanent space for older youth in the King James Way neighborhood west of Verona Road here in Fitchburg. The reasons for doing this is just as a lifelong youth worker, somebody who's worked both individually with young people as well as in systems that impact young people, and somebody who's lived in this neighborhood or near this neighborhood for the past decade. I know the importance of being able to have spaces to be able to serve young people, both to help protective factors such as leadership, academic achievement, sense of purpose, sense of belonging, as well as mitigate negative factors such as involvement in the justice system, mental health issues, attrition, and substance abuse. So, studies show this. I've included these studies in presentations that I've made before the council. But ultimately, the council decided that we would be on a 5-year plan from 2020 to be able to build a teen center by 2025. That process involves steps. And the reasons for those steps is that we want to make sure that we get a clear idea of what the community wants, particularly young people. And right now we're in step 1 of that process, which involves doing a community engagement study. We've been grateful as a council to be able to have funding starting in 2021 to be able to hire a consulting firm and also to be able to hire teens to be able to move this process forward. In that process, we've hired Equity by Design, EQT by Design, a consulting firm that's been involved in several projects in Dane County, and this committee agreed that they would be the right organization to be able to lead this work because they specialize in hearing from underrepresented voices and engaging underrepresented voices in city and infrastructural processes. So we hired Equity by Design in 2021. We began the contract in December, and the contract goes through June. And as a part of that process, thanks to folks who have donated, companies, individuals, many people on this call, We were able to secure funding to be able to hire 8 young people between 8th grade and 12th grade to serve as interns on the project. And we've actually got one of our interns here, Ojazwi, who will talk later about her involvement in the project. We also had the pleasure of having a lot of in-kind participation in the project through the UW-Madison Division of Extension, particularly in Dane County office, and Taylor, who is here, who will be speaking later on about Extension's role, particularly in youth development, as Extension specializes in positive youth development. And Taylor's been a phenomenal addition to this project and really has been a core to making this happen. And then finally, we have support from UW Health, who has both provided funding and some staffing for this project. And UW Health's Healthy Kids project also has specialization in involving young people in processes of understanding their neighborhoods, analyzing their neighborhoods, and keeping their neighborhoods safe. And they've been doing an internship for years where young people actually go street by street, park by park, in the places that they live, and actually figure out what needs to be better in order to improve their community. So we've got all the right people at the table. Thanks to the city and to private donations, we have the funding at the table, and we're in the middle of this process and moving forward towards a presentation to the council towards the end of the summer. So I'll stop there, and I'm giving a basic overview of the project, but you will hear from Ojazwi, you will hear from Matthias, who's with Equity by Design. You'll also hear from Taylor with Dane County Extension on each of the pieces and how they specifically work. So I'll pause for some initial questions if anybody has them, but just keep in mind that we'll go into more detail later in the presentation. Okay. So what I will do first is I will start with Matthias. If Matthias, if you could talk a little bit about Equity by Design's process and the role that you all play throughout this engagement study.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Hi, everyone. My name is Matias Lemos Castillo. I'm an equity consultant with Equity by Design. Our process so far, what we've done this last couple of weeks is we created 4 surveys, 2 in English, 2 in Spanish, separating one in ages 11 through 19, and then the other one for ages 20 and up, which community members have been spreading across our communities, sharing with, and we have engaged a total of, as of right now, 300 people, 151 adults, and then 150 teenagers actually as of today. So we've been moving along with that process really smoothly. We're giving the young adults that we're working with until the end of next week, just to be able to share the word and get more responses. So really community-led. The questions are very straightforward. I think the surveys are both about 15, 20 questions, and they're all supposed to engage around what the teen center, what the teens would like to see in the teen center, and then for the adults as well to share a little bit of their thoughts on it. Our plan is after we're done collecting community input to analyze the data and then be able to present from there. And then in the next couple of weeks, between now and early May, just engage in small focus groups within the community and just share, get more input from community members, from teens, adults, and just be able to share what this vision can be together. So really exciting process. And we're working with, again, with Joe, and just being able to spread the word as much as possible and get community input and engagement, and specifically from the BIPOC communities. So yeah, that's what Equity by Design has been doing on our end. Happy to answer any questions.
So what I will do is pass it to Taylor to talk about Extension's role, particularly the idea of positive youth development and how Extension has played a role in this process.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, everybody. My name is Taylor, and I'm a community youth development educator when I represent UW Extension's Institute of Positive Youth Development. My background is primarily in public health and youth advocacy and placemaking. So really focusing on youth advocacy and shared decision-making processes for healthy community design efforts. And so it's really an honor to be a part of this project. It really meshes with my MPH background and my passions and my research. And so really for this project, my role primarily is supporting this wonderful team of 8 youth in the community in kind of a youth specialist role. So really it's supporting them through this engagement study so they can identify the needs and the values that this teen center addresses for themselves, for their peers, for their community. And they have just done an absolutely amazing job. They're designing surveys, they're designing focus groups, and ultimately they will also be a part of the final report that goes to City Council. And through our activities that we've done with the interns, they're identifying the social determinants of health, really identifying these immense needs for youth opportunities across neighborhoods, such as mental health and addressing climate change, job opportunities, educational opportunities. And then I kind of come in to help tie in how all of these opportunities should be a part of this community space and how this community space ultimately ripples out for health for themselves, their peers, and their families and their communities. If anybody has any questions, I would love to answer them. Otherwise, I would love to introduce one of our wonderful, amazing interns, Ojazwi, and she's going to talk about her experience and what we've been working on. So any questions? Okay, great. Take it away, Ojazwi.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ojazwi Pasache, and I'm a junior at Verona Area High School. And the reason I wanted to be a part of this project was because I felt like when I lived in Fitchburg in the King James neighborhood, there weren't really a lot of opportunities to go outside and have a place that was safe. And I felt like having a teen center would be really nice because it is an opportunity for teens to go hang out with other people, have fun, and also find resources that they need. I know that at my home, we didn't have a computer, so I'd either have to do my work at school or I'd have to go to the library. And sometimes the library is crowded, but I think that having a teen center would provide those resources. And I wanted to make sure that my input and the input of my community in Verona was also added to this. And yeah, some things that we've been working on recently, as Taylor and Matthias said, was the community outreach and making sure we get that survey to youth in Fitchburg and around Fitchburg, as well as just adults in the community in general. And so the youth interns and I have been working on sharing it with our peers, our classes, going around in our community and just adding flyers. And yeah, it's been really fun and I've enjoyed being able to work with everybody.
Excellent. Thank you all for your input. And this has really been a team effort. It's very collaborative. And just for context, the interns meet twice a month. Initially, it was one meeting virtual and one meeting in person. But now we've switched over to having both meetings in person now that the infection rates for COVID have gone down, and we have such a high vaccination rate. But really just being a part of those meetings and sitting in on them, a lot of really good input happens. So, I'll give you one example. Net, who's not here, was talking about sort of how to go through the survey and edit it, there was an adult survey, and we wanted to develop a youth survey. And she said, you could break up into groups and talk individually. And sort of within about 20 seconds, the interns decided that, hey, why don't we all just work together, and started sort of self-organizing, breaking down the questions, critiquing them, figuring out whether a question would land, whether a question would take too long, really both learning about the process of designing a survey, but also, saying if something wouldn't work, or something would work, or if something would work better. So those are just like small examples of things that I've seen while I've been there. UW Health actually led a photo voice activity in which the interns went into their communities, took pictures, classified those pictures, and helped analyze those pictures based on what would be sort of good things to think about as you develop a space for youth. So I've just been impressed. This was everything I imagined it to be and more. Another thing that wasn't mentioned is that we actually have some focus groups planned in the coming months with both adults and with youth. And also there will be a biking event that you are all welcome to attend on May 17th between 4:30 and 6:30, in which we'll actually be biking around the neighborhood and going to different spaces in the community and talking to people that leave those spaces. So really sort of looking forward to all the input we're going to continue to get, looking forward to analyzing the survey results, and looking forward to asking, more in-depth follow-up questions as we talk to people individually. And also just another note is that the Equity by Design team has been going out and talking to different community stakeholders, whether it be folks that work in schools, nonprofits, people that are youth workers, and sort of identifying, what the major things that they see on the ground are that would help, inform this process. So I'll stop there. I'd like to take any questions or feedback or clarifications from the H&I committee, since you all have played such a strong role in helping move this project forward.
I have a question, and it's mostly a clarifying question. Joe, I know you've come to the last few meetings, and I'm just wanting to clarify what the relationship is between H&I and the Teen Center, and what our role is in supporting the Teen Center moving forward. I know you've mentioned that the H&I has been very influential or necessary throughout, but I'm curious as how that process goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would say, just from a structural perspective at the city, this is sort of the first committee that this project's going to go through as it's developed. So, as we prepare to look at the results of this community engagement study, as we look to go into phase 2, which will be an actual design study, which we have in our budget for this year at the city, and going through the future process of doing a feasibility study where we, sort of look at cost and look at, how the structure of a space is going to look and what organizations go into that space. The whole way we're going to be checking in with you all and getting your input and feedback as to the direction that we're going. I think the other thing that I see as a long-term is, and I put this in the our capital improvement plan, is once the space is actually built, I'd like to see some H&I grant funds allocated specifically to the organizations that operate in the space. And obviously that would involve increasing the capacity of the H&I grant, which I think is necessary as the population of Fitchburg grows. So those are just a few things. The first thing is first, I would love to hear any input from the committee as to, as we make a formal presentation, you know, what sort of things do you think would land? You know, and what things would make this a high quality presentation that you would, you know, want to see if you were on council?
Well, I guess being the newbie here, I hope this isn't inappropriate, but to respond to Joe's question, first off, I just want to start off by complimenting everyone. This is absolutely amazing. As someone who does research for a living and field surveys, you blow me away when you talk about the number of people you've been able to reach. And one thing we should probably be thinking about is how do we continue to replicate this type of engagement in our community? And maybe you guys have been thinking about that already. I think as far as things that would land, for me personally, maybe it's because I'm a pediatrician, it's the voices of the teens. And so if there are plans there to have the teens be a significant portion of this presentation, I think that that probably would help really bring this thing to life. I also haven't seen the photos, but I would be very curious to see the photos, to see what might land there. And then the data from the survey, obviously, I would be very interested in seeing that and thinking about what would land from that data and any questions that may arise from the data that we could anticipate before we get to council.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That's really good feedback. I think the subtext behind that is as we present to the full council, I need to talk less, and Ojazwi and the other interns need to talk more. So I'm really excited as we prepare for that presentation. You know, moving forward, and I have to give another like heap of praise to Taylor. Because the amount of details that are involved in putting this together are high. We have to think about, you know, how we're going to present this information, how we're going to make it interesting, engaging. And I would actually also like to ask Ojazwi, with a response rate of 151 among, you know, 8 interns, how were you able to get the word out to your peers to fill out the survey?
So one of the big things I did was reach out to clubs at school. I'm in Multicultural Leadership Council as well as the Black Student Union. And I talked to the leaders of those clubs and then shared the information about the survey with them, which I think got a good amount of responses. And then I also talked to my teachers and put up flyers around the school and in our library. And I also talked to my friends about it. And then I recently saw an email sent out to like the entire district, and I'm not sure exactly who did that, but now I think all the middle schoolers and high schoolers at Verona have access to the survey, which I think is really nice.
Joshua, did you use social media at all?
Yeah, I used Instagram to shared posts on my story.
I just want to comment that, yeah, I'm just really impressed with how engaged all of you were able to have the youth in this project. I've tried it doing a lot of outreach and surveys and things like that before through my work, and I know how challenging that can be, but to hear the numbers that you guys have come up with, and also the process, the ways that you've gone about to get the responses, very creative, very impressive. I just yeah, I'm blown away by what you have done.
And I would echo what, you know, Ryan and Elizabeth said. I think this is just great, and I'm really excited for it. And I'm really impressed by all of the work. In terms of what I think would really land in council is, I think like hearing, you know, directly from the teens. Like I know, like for me, like I I am a numbers person. I love digging into the data, but there's also something just like um, much more personal when I hear like actually how it's going to impact someone in their day-to-day life, or has the potential to do that. And I think it helps put a real human face on it. So I think hopefully that can help get everyone thinking beyond just the numbers, which we know are significant, and can help I guess help us go over that hurdle.
Absolutely. So I just put the link to the survey in the chat. I would ask that H&I members, first off, fill it out if you haven't, but second off, share with folks that live in and around Fitchburg, youth and adults. And there is a version of the survey in Spanish as well. So if you have Spanish speakers, please share that link with them. To the point of sort of youth engagement, I will say that this is the first time, to my knowledge, that we've had this level of youth involvement in the city of Fitchburg related to a decision that is being made in city policy. So it's my hope that this trend will continue and there will be other ways for youth to get involved, because the decisions that the city makes impacts them, even though they may not be old enough to vote. Their input, and their involvement matters. And I'll say the phrase that I've said a few times: nothing about us without us. So, if we're making decisions that impact teens, we should have teens at the table.
Katie, did you have a question?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to, going back to things that I think would strike or be well received with the council. I guess I personally am a very visual person. And I know that Taylor and I have worked together on class projects before, and she's exceptional at making visually appealing graphics about how everything in a very large project connects to each other. And I think sometimes on council meetings, you can have conversations that divert from like maybe the main point, and having a visual that kind of encompasses that whole idea to come back to and center everyone could be really beneficial during the conversation. But I also second everybody else's idea of having the teens be the center stage.
Elizabeth, did you want to go?
Yeah, I was just thinking about how to make this impact or land this. And I wonder if it's possible to use the same engagement methods to turn out 150 teenagers at the city council meeting. I don't know if that's feasible, if we think that might be desirable, and their families, but this has been so successful. And then the other thing I was going to say is not to underestimate just the value of the process that has happened here, not just the outcomes from it. For example, is there any thought to how we would sustain engagement of teenagers in our city, building on what you guys have already built?
That's an excellent point. I think so I'll say one thing. One of the interesting things that Extension does for folks that don't know, Extension is a part of the university, but it's also sort of a part of the university's role as a land grant institution. So, and I won't go into the whole history of that, but essentially the mission of Extension is to be able to serve the state of Wisconsin and all 72 counties, and in different ways. And one of the ways in which it does that is youth development. And one aspect of youth development is we actually have youth and governance programs. So there is a youth and governance program in Dane County, which young people serve on the county board, and that happens in several counties throughout the state. But there is actually, sort of best practice behind how to do that. And I think Fitchburg could be served well by finding ways to incorporate youth into processes of local government, not just for the sake of serving teens and building them up and developing them, but also for the service of informing city leaders, informing city staff, in how to be more inclusive in our processes. Because oftentimes the decisions that get made at the city council level, the makeup of the council, the makeup of our committees, the makeup of staff aren't aligned with the makeup of the city of Fitchburg. And this is sort of one way of, increasing that representation. Most of our interns live in the city of Fitchburg. And all of them are from BIPOC communities, so students of color, and really kind of reflect the diversity of the city of Fitchburg. And obviously, for them, it's also I won't speak for them, but for a young person to be able to go through this internship is actually a professional development process. So you're learning about survey design, you're learning about focus groups, you're building your leadership skills, you're developing, all those things that'll help you, get into college, get a career, but also just be, more well-rounded human being. So I agree fully with your point. So the point about bringing youth out, I think that's definitely something we should explore and figure out how to make happen. And then for the long term, I would love to see, some infrastructure built into our city processes and how to involve youth.
Are there any comments in the room? I can't see you so well, but I wanted to make sure we didn't miss any. If there are, go ahead.
This is Ari. My thought was I was wondering if there were any lessons learned from the process of going through the hub designs, as far as I know that there was an evolution of, the hub ideation becoming an actual design. And so I was not part of that process. I'm very new to the committee, but were there any lessons learned there? Maybe that could help answer the question. That was my thought.
Yeah, and I can chime in on that based on me being kind of the staff lead for that project. I think to everyone's points here, it's really about creating engagement mechanisms that are reflective of our population, meeting people where they are. The old model of inviting people to City Hall and doing a 20-minute PowerPoint by city staff, just, that worked for some audiences, but not for everybody. So I think we knew that, but I think put that into practice with the hub. Carmen, who's our neighborhood navigator, she's on the call today as well. She was great at getting out in the neighborhood and just, going to Pick and Save, going to the credit union, being there with a table, with a pile of paper and saying, hey, we're planning this hub. What do you as a neighborhood, what do you want to see in it? So I think, those things, and to Joe's point about institutionalizing these processes, in my opinion, that means city staff, a city community engagement specialist that's devoted to these sorts of things as a full-time job. Carmen does that, part-time, but she's not trained in doing that. She's not, doesn't have professional experience in that. So I think as the city grows, as we evolve, I think our staff capacity needs to reflect, these important parts of processes that get us to these ultimate outcomes. So, I think in the past 2 or 3 years, we've learned a lot, and, we'll continue to do so.
All right. Any other feedback?
Alder Radafrada, did you have any feedback, questions, comments?
No, I think you know what I think about this project. I was a co-sponsor of this amendment in 2020, so I think this is great for the city, and it's an investment, especially for our youth. And I will do everything in my power to keep moving this project forward.
Joe, can you tell us a little bit about next steps, like when the survey is going to close, when we'll see the results, and then when we'll move into the design phase?
I know we've pushed it back a little bit just so we can get more results, and I think, Matthias, correct me if I'm wrong, it'll close the 8th. Is that correct? Okay, so the survey will close the 8th, and the results will be analyzed by both the youth interns as well as the Equity by Design team. So the Equity by Design team is going to take the lead on the adult surveys and really, breaking that information down, and the youth will focus on the youth surveys. That will inform the focus groups that are planned. So we do have a date selected for that. Taylor, do you have that date on hand?
The 18th of April.
So April 18th, we will be gathering focus group attendees or focus group participants at Redeemer City Church. We'll have a series of different sort of small groups to be able to collect information. And then that all will inform that final presentation that we give. And still settling in on dates, we're looking at possibly the end of July at the committee of the whole meeting. But I just have to check with city staff because I know there might be a finance presentation on our budget that'll be competing with. So it'll either be at the end of July or at the end of August. And then simultaneously, I'm going to be working with Wade to put together an RFP for a design study to be able to actually, hire an architect or a designer to lead phase 2. And it is my intention, and I hope it's the intention of this committee as well, that process will also involve youth and also include space for youth interns, so that some of the our current interns, if they'd like to apply, can apply, or if other youth want to be involved, they can be involved. And I'm also I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, Taylor. I want to make sure that the extension is also involved in this process as well, because it makes sense.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any final questions?
I have a clarifying question. Joe, so that meeting to the Common Council, is that to vote on something, or is that purely to give results of the survey and next steps?
It will be results. So there's nothing that the council necessarily has to approve or accept. And for everybody in the room, committee of the whole meetings are meetings that are led by our council president. And those are usually to flesh out issues and discuss issues prior to, making legislative decisions in front of the council. So one thing the council will be approving, however, is, one, agreeing to spend the money that we've budgeted for a design study, and then two, to approve a contract, and to ultimately, this committee likely will do the same thing that they did in selecting a company, and council will, approve that decision. We don't know exactly when those decisions will be made yet, though. We need to work that out between, staff.
All right. Any further questions, guys? And all right, If not, I just want to thank everyone for coming in and presenting and giving us this update. It was really interesting, and we really appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you all for having us, and thanks for everybody for coming to present with me.
Oh, Katie, go ahead.
Oh, I was clapping my hands.
Oh, okay. All right. Awesome. All right. So then let's move to agenda item 5B on the Healthy Neighborhoods awards, funding awards. Wade, do you want to?
Yep, I'll
Speak
give
to
a
this?
presentation on this, and then committee can discuss and make recommendations. So, oh, is that how we start? Okay, yep. So we need to, or Julia, do you want to explain?
Button.
Oh, my Lord. So, Emily, we need to move the motion first, and then we open the discussion, okay? So I will do that. I move approval of resolution R-52-22, approving the 2022 funding award for the Healthy Neighborhood Grant Program. I need a second.
I second.
Okay. So now we are open to discussion.
Okay.
And for new committee members, basically what happens is most city decisions are made via resolution. So that's what is in front of us tonight. So the idea is we put a resolution in front of council. They kick it out to relevant committees through what's called a referral process. Those committees make a recommendation, then it gets kicked back up to council, and then they make a final decision. So the goal here tonight would be to make a recommendation on this resolution in front of us. So again, we kind of talked about, the real meat of what this committee does. This is actually how this committee started. It started by solely focusing on this grant program. And everything I'm reading off today is from your packet, and it should be on the screen for folks that are zooming in. But so what I did is I put together a memo. We'll talk through some of those high points, and then we'll talk about each one of the applications. I'll just very briefly provide an overview. I'll tell you what my staff recommendation was. And then you certainly can discuss and make your own recommendation to council. But in terms of, kind of that memo, is my screen shared, Scott, or?
Your screen is not shared.
Oh, okay.
Well, it is, but it's the agenda.
So let me just. Okay. Oops. All right, there we go. So I realized right off the bat I made an error in my memo. I'm sure folks picked it up, but we had 8 applications submitted in 2022, not 2021. We got 95,630 in funding requests. This was the first year we have more money than we have applications, and I think big picture that's okay. I think we were very close to our supply or our demand meeting our supply. Usually it's the other way around. We have more demand than supply, so I think the city might be finding that sweet spot of annual allocation for this grant program. Now, again, when we talk our H&I, our neighborhood initiative, we're talking 3 neighborhoods. I think folks are familiar with where those are. Verona Road neighborhood, our Belmar, Renaissance on the Park neighborhood, and then our North Fishhatchee Road neighborhood. And I think, one thing I try to keep in mind when we make recommendations is, to the degree we can, in ensuring that they're good applications, but also that there's equitable geographic distribution amongst those neighborhoods. And I think we're seeing that again this year. So that first table identifies our 3 neighborhoods and the various applications that I'm recommending in terms of where they break out in those 3 neighborhoods. And I do want to point out that a lot of our applications cover multiple neighborhoods, so that's why we get a number of 17 and not the 8 applications that we talked about earlier. So the second table, we started doing this last year, and I think it's a nice summary snapshot for the committee. Let's bear with me here. So basically what this does is it identifies our grant program categories. And we reworked these categories a couple of years ago to reflect what we were seeing in terms of applications and also what we were seeing in terms of needs in the neighborhood. And those 4 categories are youth mentoring, adult education and workforce development, food security, and then kind of a catch-all of neighborhood community building and engagement. So what we did is we basically identified the applications that kind of fall under those categories. And again, various applications fall within a couple different categories, but I tried to identify the main category that I thought the application was in. And I think what's really helpful here is identifying the percentage of award recommendations for each category. So you'll kind of see the focus area total, and to me that's a pretty important number. So for youth mentoring, we're looking at about 40% of our funding being recommended for that category. Adult education, workforce development, about 16%. Food security, and we saw this with the pandemic, you know, a much higher focus on food security, so that's fairly high, 30%. And then, again, the neighborhood community building and engagement, about 11% of our awards. Now, what I like about this, and this is a real tenet of the initiative of this grant program, is getting upstream on these issues. And I think that youth mentoring element, you know, looking at the amount of money we're recommending to be spent in that category is a good sign of that, you know, kind of getting that upstream element. So again, you also see the neighborhood in which the applications are doing their work in, and then you'll see the total funding award at the bottom of the table there. And then again, just more data, you know, just more summary on the applications in kind of a nice table form. And I think with that, I'm just going to kind of run through, again, for folks that have been on the committee before, you've seen this every year. But for the new folks, I want to kind of just give a brief overview of our process, and then we'll get into the recommendations themselves. So we've kind of gone back and forth with process. I think now that we have this committee formalized and it's now a permanent committee, I think we've got our process pretty set up moving forward. So really what happened this year and what will continue to happen is this staff person that serves this committee will review and make recommendations based on a review form that we can talk about, as well as that kind of those big picture H&I elements that are identified in our strategic plan. Then this committee reviews and makes your own recommendations. Historically, this committee's recommendations are pretty close to staff recommendations. So again, I think that's a good sign. Again, based on various criteria, various discussion points you will have, you know, you'll look at my recommendations and you'll come to your own conclusions. And then that'll get, again, kicked back up to council. They will review all the information and make their own. They will be the final say. They will make the approvals. And again, historically, the council their approvals have mirrored what's come out of this committee. So again, I think that reflects the good work done by this committee. And that'll actually happen, I think, at our April council meeting. So next Tuesday, April 12th, they will see your recommendations. They will make their decisions, and then I will notify applicants of their award status. Again, this is just a form that can be used as a guide to help make decisions. It's not the be-all, end-all in terms of decision-making, but it's a tool that I use that the committee can use to, again, help you make your decisions. And then just talking a little bit about, again, kind of that big picture H&I stuff. You know, I think we really want to look at how we increase collaboration, communication, and common goals among our partners that serve our neighborhood. So if there's applications that are, you know, kind of overlapping where they're working with other groups, you know, I think that's a positive thing to look at in terms of reviewing applications. Again, I talked about getting upstream. You know, I think applications that are proactive, comprehensive, strategic, and integrated, and not, you know, reactive, tactical, or siloed. I think those are things to look for as we make decisions. And then again, I think the core of a lot of this stuff is really about engaging the community. And maybe the focus of the program or of the application isn't engagement, but there's some level of engagement within that proposed application or that proposed project. So again, I review the applications. This committee, which is kind of a broad spectrum of our our city. We're part of the process here. Again, we look at the application review form, we look at the big picture, and then we ultimately make our recommendations. So with that, maybe I'll just stop before I get into the applications themselves and just take any questions on process.
I was just going to make a comment, Wade, or I did have a question. Ideally, we'd like to have more requests than we do, requests for financial resources than we do in the budget, right?
I think generally speaking, when you talk about grant programs, that's probably a good thing. One thing I'm seeing, Ryan, and I think it's a positive thing, but I think at some point we'll need to figure out maybe how to get some new blood into, so to speak. But what I'm seeing happen is we're funding repeat partners because they're really good applications and they do really good work. And again, I think that's positive because we build that long-term partnership over years. But what also happens is when someone comes to us one year and they don't get approved, and I do this too when I write grants. If I go to a funding source one year and I don't get a grant, I don't usually go back there because I don't feel good about getting an award the next year. That being said, this year, if we had more applications, maybe stuff we rejected in years past because we had limited funds, this year we could have funded, at maybe a partial level. So yeah, I think there's a few things going on there, but yeah, I think generally speaking, we'd want to see demand exceed supply. But maybe there's that sweet spot there, and maybe that's just a matter of this committee thinking a little bit more about how we, market the program to new entities. So yeah, that's, I guess, a couple thoughts there.
Just one more quick question is, in the past, we've exceeded $100,000 in requests, haven't we?
Yeah, I think maybe 2 years ago was our high point. It was over, I think it was like 190, 180. Don't quote me on that. But again, a lot of those applications that we didn't get funded, or that didn't get funded, I didn't see those this year, from those same groups. I saw, again, a lot of applications from folks we funded in the past, but not a whole lot of, I guess, new blood is the way to, I'll phrase it. So,
Right.
Yep.
There was also, just a quick comment, there was also, there was a lot of opportunities out there too for agencies to get funding. So I think we were competing with a lot of, state money and federal money. So that played into that too, I'm sure.
But again, keep in mind too, I think this is the highest pot of money we've ever had. And that's reflective of, some leftover funds. There was a couple applications we funded 2 years ago that delayed their projects because of COVID, and then were never able to finish them. So that money rolled over. So yeah, in a normal year, we'd probably have more like 70,000, 75 with some rollover. So I think in a normal year, that demand would have exceeded supply, so.
Can I make a comment about that? So
Sure.
the budget for this is only $50,000 a year, okay? That is approved, okay? That every year we have to fight to be in the budget. So I know that you mentioned that this year is unique because we have, some funds that they were not used in previous year. This is why we have $95,000, but otherwise it will be 50.
Yep. Yep.
So this one we need to take, this is an unusual year that we have more funds because they were not used in previous year, not because the council added more funds to this, okay? So I want to clarify that.
Yep. Yeah, I think on average, we've got about 63,000 the past couple of years. Is that right? It's 50? Okay. Okay.
Wade,
Yeah, go for it.
I'm wondering if you would talk a little bit about any sort of process for how potential applicants know about the program, and how, if there are any sort of technical assistance calls or interactions that you might do before somebody actually applies, just in the spirit of trying to diversify the applicant pool.
Yep. Yeah, good question. And again, I think some of this is reflective of current staff capacity. We kind of do the normal channels of outreach with, local newspaper and website, and I'll send targeted emails to listservs that, are groups of these kind of organizations. Generally speaking, I've got a lot of positive feedback on our processes in terms of application. We're not CDBG, we're not super complicated with application requirements. So so we don't currently have like a pre-application process or, like a pre-application meeting or anything like that. Certainly I always make myself available for calls for clarity if people need help on applications. I could probably count on one hand the number of calls I've gotten on that. So I think, to me, it's probably, so it is kind of a basic grant program. And I think, again, our applicants like that. They like the ease of, it's thorough, but it's efficient. It's not overly burdensome on them. So I think our applicants like that. And I'd like to maintain that level of complexity or non-complexity. But to your broader point, I think we could think more about just how to get the word out. Whether it's, other networks or, just ways to get the word out. And certainly, as this committee evolves and, for next year, I'd be open to having that discussion, come fall when we start to prepare those application materials, so.
Wait, I had a question about, I noticed that in a lot of the applicants, they were like, they had budgeted a percentage of the funds from Fitchburg to be used towards their project.
Yep.
In the application process, is it required that you have, that it's covering like X percent of the project? Like, could it cover 100%?
It certainly could. I think the idea is a lot of these, in the nonprofit world, you're trying to find every available avenue. So it's, a little bit here, a little bit there. And we just like to get a sense, I think from our decision-making process of, who else have they been talking to? Are they kind of entrenched in the grant award scene, so to speak? But yeah, certainly, I think there's opportunities for our funds to cover the whole projects. I'm trying to think offhand if, we see that often. I think it's more common that, it's one piece of the pot. But certainly, yeah, that's an option.
Okay. And then I had a different question. So there's like some 3,000 that's gonna, like, say we award all of the applicants tonight, then there's gonna be like an excess of 3,000. Well, what happens? Will that just roll over to next year?
Yep. So basically what I have to do is every year I make a request. I work with our finance department, and then we make a request to council to roll those over into this program for next year. I believe every time we've done, this grant program is 5 years old-ish, and we've been successful every year at doing that when there's been leftover. But it is a council's prerogative that if they want to put that money somewhere else, they can. But again, historically, we haven't seen that, so.
Okay.
Wade, I have another process question for you. Just in reviewing all of the applications, as you said, many of them have been funded many times before, which you can see as a positive. Is there a specific query in the application request that asks them to quantify impact on Fitchburg specifically?
Yep. So I can forward this, or maybe tomorrow I'll shoot you an email, Elizabeth, and direct you to our website resource. But yeah, we have a project closeout form where basically they're required to show impact, amount of residents served in our neighborhoods, outcomes identified in the application, and then, did they reach those outcomes? Certainly in this world, some of this stuff is more qualitative than quantitative, but to the degree we can, get some hard numbers, we like to do that. We also provide an opportunity for a narrative. I heard Emily talk earlier about putting the human face on things. So certainly we allow for that as well. But I think, to your broader point too, I think, again, this is a young program. It's new to the city. I was new to managing this type of grant program. So I think there's always room to really, improve these processes. And we've done that every year. And I could see, next year we make maybe some additional criteria in that review form where we kind of, figure out, again, what's you know, what's important to decision makers to make sure that this program continues to get the funding it deserves. So, yep.
Yeah, thank you for interpreting sort of the spirit that that question was intended. Not your, the process is amazing, and it's amazing that our city conducts this and gives out this money. But I think thinking about Julia's question about this $50,000, and we're going to add another part to our city here coming up, and our city is very rapidly growing, and the needs are growing. $50,000 is not going to go very well, so or very far in the future. So how do we work to build that? Yeah.
And then just another quick point there, I think folks probably know that we'll be getting Town of Madison, a portion of that, which is an additional 1,000+ residents. And that neighborhood will become our fourth H&I neighborhood. So by that alone, you know, it deserves consideration for additional funds, so, yep.
Can I mention something? That, you know, some of the ARPA funds, the council approved one of the amendments that I introduced was to increase $50,000 more on the Healthy Neighborhood Program in 23, 24, and 25. So we have an extra $50,000, you know, additional to the 50. So I hope next year when we do the budget for 2023, you know, council approve the amendment, but it's a plan, but I'm gonna bring forward the $50,000 additional. So at least we have 100,000. And the idea is maybe we can provide grants more than $20,000, $25,000, because that one is when you can see more. I would say like a better success with the grant, or the people that have more resources to, you know, to work with more people in the community. And, you know, we started with $5,000 a couple of years ago. Then we increased it to 10, and now we're doing, this is the first time that I am seeing $15,000. So every year we try to increase, you know, how much. But yeah, I agree with you, you know, in a city with a $21 million budget, allocating $50,000 a year in this is nothing, so, yeah.
And just one other quick point of that, you know, yeah, I think ramping up the award to a, you know, a certain level makes sense, but also just allowing for multi-year awards, meaning they don't have to apply every year. You know, and talking with our applicants, I think that would be, again, these aren't huge awards, so if we're gonna make someone, you know, apply for 20 grand, well, let's make it worth their while, then, you know, give them 2 years and 30 grand or something like that. So, so yeah, again, these are all things, again, we're a young grant program. I think these are all things that we'll continue to build on, so. Any other questions on process? All right, so I'm sure folks have had a chance to look at the presentation, but I'm just gonna quickly provide a brief overview of each application, and again, you know, kind of touch on our initiative. So again, these are our neighborhoods. You know, I think folks you either live in these neighborhoods or you know them well, so those are our focus areas. Again, just quickly, we had 8 applications received, about 96,000 in requested funding, about 99,000 available to fund. And again, I made recommendations on 8 applications, which was the entirety of the applications submitted. So first application, Aldo Leopold Elementary School, PFO, eligible project, yes. They requested $7,000. Focus areas, neighborhood, community building and engagement, but also food security and youth education. So actually last year we funded these guys to really fix up their community garden, and it's been a great success. Really served that neighborhood and that school well. This year we want to look at enhancing, and Ari, you probably know that well, yep. This year we're looking at, this grant would maintain that momentum, enhance the garden, work to distribute that food via that food pantry they have going on up there. And then also develop educational curriculum around kind of food security and food education. And as I mentioned, again, it's a continuation of an existing project, so I think that's always a really cool thing. It's in our Fish Hatch neighborhood. Other considerations, I'm trying to remember the exact details, but I think there were some capital elements. I think it was, again, you know, if it was, might have been some improvements to the garden infrastructure itself. Again, to me, in my head, it's multifaceted, it's collaborative, it's kind of some of those big picture, checking the boxes that we talked about earlier. It's gonna work with our neighborhood navigator, Carmen. So again, I think that's a good thing. So staff is recommending a full funding award for that. Sure.
Okay, a question. When you see a staff, who are those staff? Is you and who else?
When I say what, staff?
Staff, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's just me.
Okay.
I learned long ago, Julie, not to say people's names, but just say staff. That covers everybody, yeah. Yep. But no, that's a good point. I check in with our parks director now and again on some of this stuff and some other planning people, but yeah, it's basically me. Second application is Badger Prairie Needs Network. Folks are probably familiar with this group. Great, all volunteer run organization, focused on food security. I would say kind of a leader in the food security movement in the region. We funded them multiple years, always really good outcomes. They're asking for a full award. Again, this would be food security and neighborhood community building and engagement. And this would entail expanding access to and capacity of their existing pantry. And then what's really cool about this is they're gonna partner with Latino Academy of Workforce Development, which is a group we'll talk about in a little bit, but they were introduced as a result of our grant program. So again, I think that just shows you that idea of collaboration and partnership that, that's kind of manifested with this program. They're looking at serving all 3 of our neighborhoods. Other considerations, again, I would just kind of call this an immediate issue. I mean, food security is as important as it can get. Again, it is collaborative with the other group, Latino Academy. Again, repeat partner, continuation of existing project funded by some previous awards. So again, we would recommend a full award. Big Brothers Big Sisters, again, a group we've worked with many years. Jill, their grant person, is great. Jill Wood, really immaculate reporting. They meet their outcomes. A really solid organization. Again, eligible project. They're requesting the full award. I think folks probably know what Big Brothers Big Sisters is about, but basically it's youth mentoring, specifically increasing and strengthening their big little matches, and then expanding access to those matches. Again, all 3 neighborhoods. Other considerations, again, talk about getting upstream. I think youth mentoring is as good as it gets in that regard. It's collaborative, again, repeat partner. We funded them years past, and again, really good reporting from these folks.
Yeah. The big sister of the year is someone from the city of Fitchburg. They just announced this afternoon, so.
Oh.
It's Anne de Jarmo. She's our current Dane County supervisor.
Okay, cool.
So she's a big sister, and she's going to be recognized. So, So we have people in Fitchburg that they are doing a good job too.
Great. Moving on, Boys and Girls Club. Again, I think folks are probably familiar with this group. Eligible project. They're asking for the full award. Again, food security. They have what's called a Family Meals to Go program. So it's basically like a food pantry type distribution, but it's all prepackaged stuff. And I think it's kind of centered at their club. And this actually picks up on something they started last year. So again, it would be that continuation of an existing project. This would focus on the Belmar Renaissance on the Park neighborhood. Again, and the issue obviously very important. And then again, I think there is a collaborative element as well. So staff would recommend a full award here as well. Dear Diary, I talked a little bit about the new blood. These guys were new last year. And they did a really nice job with their project last year, so they applied again. Eligible project, $15,000, full award they're asking for. Again, youth mentoring and education. What I like about this project, it's very focused. It's basically looking at Black female youth empowerment, through programming, activities, and workshops. Focusing on all 3 neighborhoods. Again, very collaborative. And then again, to that earlier point, it's the only application that's focused on a youth, female, minority group. So I think that's a neat thing. And again, staff would recommend full award here.
I have a question on this one. So, I mean, I love everything that I've read about them. However, I have a question, I guess, about process. So I see that they have a budget, 2022 revenues projected at $355,000. But in reading through their information, it sounded like they currently have only 15 mentees, Black girls who are being mentored, and then by the end of this year, calendar year, they would like to have an additional 15 to 20. And it seems kind of interesting to me that $355,000 is being spent in 1 year on essentially like 15 to maybe 30, citizens. And so, I mean, I am not in any way, shape, or form saying that we shouldn't fund this. I'm actually curious to know if we had a question about that, what would be the process of
So, and I don't have
getting
that in
to
front of
them?
me, but so is your understanding of that 355, is that the whole organization's budget for that entire year, or just focused on?
This is page 137 out of 351. So it seems as though Dear Diary has paid about $30,000 per year to Center for Community Stewardship to be like a fiscal sponsor, so that they don't have to do all the like tax and all the paperwork for being a 501c3. So that's great. So, but however, that means that all the financial documents were for Center for Community Stewardship. So really, the only documentation that I had for understanding the financials of Dear Diary Inc. itself was this one, page 137, where it says the projected revenues for 2022 are going to be $355,000 for the year.
Yeah, I can ask the question, and see, what they say. I guess one thought would be, is that for other things beyond, those 15 mentorees? Is there other things that potentially that money's covering? Now, I guess one thing about Dear Diary too is, so last year they applied under a group called Charles Hamilton Houston Institute. This year they applied under the Center for Community Stewardship. I have been in touch with their contact. They did 6 months ago file for their own 501c3 status. That takes a long time with the IRS. They just recently got that approved, so now they will be their own. So that might add some clarity as well, to their organization. But yeah, I can certainly ask that question and provide an answer to the committee if desired.
Can I have a follow-up on that? Because then that is interesting. It looks like they were and I'm on page 134. It looks like they were requesting $1,200 from the city of Fitchburg to go towards their fiscal agent fee, which I assume was the management fee for the fiscal sponsorship.
Yeah, good point. So I should definitely clarify that with them.
Yeah.
Yep, and this is completely fine with process. You can make conditional approvals, pending further information. Direct staff to get further detail, and I can certainly, come back with information via email. But yeah, I can certainly look into that.
I think personally, my personal recommendation would be, fund it. Sounds like a great program. I'd love for them to be able to provide this service for more of our, Black girls who have been caught up in the criminal justice system. Wonderful. I would also still love answers to the questions. Yeah.
Sure. Yep. Any other questions or comments on this application?
I just had a comment that I know of them from a project I did last year, and at that time they were part of the Charles Hamilton Institute, which is a much larger organization. So that's what my mind went to, and the larger budget of that didn't seem right to fund what they were doing with 15 mentees. But yeah, I feel like getting an answer on that would be interesting.
Sure.
All of those 15 mentees are Fitchburg residents, right? They're not.
Correct, yep.
They're not spread, yeah.
And yeah, just some context too, I know we've seen it in the past where, you know, with the intensity of what some of these organizations do, you'll see what might seem like a lot of money for, you know, a handful of residents, but you know, I think it's important to keep in mind some of the, I guess I'll call it the intensity of the impact, you know, how they're focusing on these 15 individuals. So just something to keep in mind, kind of big picture wise. All right, next group, Latino Academy of Workforce Development. Some folks probably know this group. Again, a great organization. Baltazar, their executive director, is, yeah, he's an amazing individual. Eligible project, asking for a full award. Adult education, workforce development is kind of the category. More specifically, transportation focused employment and computer skills / IT training. Again, it affects all our neighborhoods. You know, adult education, I think, is very proactive. And again, this kind of picks up on a project that was started last year, or that was funded last year with this program. So again, there'd be that continuation aspect as well. And again, staff is recommending a full award.
Wait, I don't know you are aware that they split from Vera Court.
Okay,
So they have a new board, so the board member that they are in the application packet is incorrect.
okay,
So maybe they should provide you with a new,
sure.
because I went to the website, I know some of the board member, and I went to the event where they celebrate the 10 years
Okay.
organization, and they split from Vera Court, but there is a new board of directors.
Just some of that new information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just going back to Dear Diary for a quick second. On page 129 of it, it does say that the total project budget is 30,000. And then, you know, our grant would be like a sub portion of that. So perhaps what we're seeing in terms of like the 300,000 and change is something that it encompasses a whole lot of other stuff outside of the specific project that we're looking at.
Right.
Good catch. Also, I would love clarification on whether the 15 girls in the program are actually Fitchburg residents, because on page 132, their answer to 4A was just currently there are 15 girls in the program who will be promoted to 9th grade in June. It doesn't say anything about being in priority neighborhoods or anything.
Yeah, I think somewhere in the application, we asked for a number of unduplicated neighborhood residents impacted, and I thought it was in there, but maybe, yeah, I'll confirm that too. Because there were a few applications that didn't have that initially, and I had to follow up with them, so that may not have made it into the updated apps may not have made it into your packet, but I'll confirm that. All right, so Latino Academy, I guess any other questions on that one? And I know historically they've, I think they do programming out of our library, and then not to make a pitch for what's coming next, but, you know, with the segue to the hub project, you know, I think if that thing gets off the ground in the next year plus, you would see this group do programming up there in a heartbeat, so something to think about. Little John's, again, folks might be familiar with this group. They're doing some really innovative stuff over in the Verona Road neighborhood. Dave Heidi, local chef, owns Liliana's, among other places, is kind of starting a really innovative, community-based, I don't know if restaurant's the right word, but just kind of a community space that's focused on food and building community. We did fund them last year. They're asking for a small amount this year of $3,500. I would categorize it as neighborhood community building and engagement. Food security might be a stretch, and I'll talk about that. But so basically, I want to purchase food processing equipment, and I would categorize it as using free food distribution as a draw to get those residents to that space and just kind of interact and commingle, and, you know, all the positive benefits that happen from getting people in communities in a community space. It is the Verona Road West neighborhood. It is an equipment purchase, which we did the same for them last year. They used our money to buy some equipment to package some, those prepackaged meals that the Boys and Girls Club would then distribute. So it was a nice partnership there as well. Now, I guess the food here is ice cream. You know, they want to distribute ice cream, and, you know, we are in Wisconsin, and it will be summer coming up. So, you know, I, as a staff person, feel good about this project, but I certainly understand if people have concerns about, you know, healthy food or that sort of thing. So that is something we can certainly discuss. But staff would be recommending an award for this project as well.
You know, I know that they've been very sensitive to people's dietary needs. I wonder if we raised having an alternative of some kind. If I imagine Dave could be very open to that.
Yeah,
just a
and
thought.
I think, you know, kind of the idea is, you know, just figuring out what other kind of food products would be a draw like ice cream, you know what I mean? And I think that's the real key thing to think about, but yeah.
Well, for some kids who can't eat ice cream, even
Sure.
you know, a frozen yogurt product. Or
Got it, yep.
something
yep.
else like that could be an alternative, yeah. Or for kids who are dairy sensitive
Yep.
as
yep.
well, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, please, a survey, something like just non-dairy. Great.
Okay, moving on, Try for Schools. Now these, I guess to our earlier discussion, these folks applied, I think 2 years ago, maybe it was 3. We had a really competitive pool that year, limited funds, and we're not able to fund them. But they did come back, and I'm glad they did. So they have an eligible project requesting about $10,000. Again, I would call this youth mentoring education. And really it's about, you know, kind of building, again, that youth capacity through physical fitness, you know, that sort of thing. Looking at 2 of our neighborhoods, North Fishhatch and Belmar. Again, what I like here is it is a new partner. You know, there are some partners they're working with in terms of being collaborative. And then again, I think this idea of just incorporating fitness is obviously I think a win for any of our neighborhoods, to be honest. So I think, again, staff would be making a full award recommendation here as well.
Wade, do you remember the reason
I do.
specifically the reason why?
I think that year, again, we were really limited with the demand way exceeded supply. I think that we had another group called Girls on the Run.
Oh, yeah.
Who was very similar, you know, fitness-based. And I think I remember the discussion being real, you know, it was kind of like, which one do we fund, or do we fund
Yeah.
both? And I think we went with Girls on the Run because, again, we liked that kind of niche female empowerment aspect to that group, because we didn't, you know, just focusing on, you know, youth female aspect. So I think it wasn't anything about a bad application. It was just, you know, picking between 2 really good applications and making a decision based on some other things, so.
You know, Wade, I think the one question that I had about this application is, what are they doing to be welcoming to youth who are not physically fit?
Sure.
And sometimes this is a hard hurdle to get over, and these programs tend to attract kids who are already physically fit.
Yeah, makes sense.
If I had an ask for them, it would be to tell us about how they engage kids who aren't physically fit, and if they have any data about the kids that they're able to successfully engage.
Sure.
Yes, can I ask a question? I'm going to follow up Elizabeth. Yes, that one is my biggest concern because I have seen some of the activity and most of the kids that they are fit kids, you know what I mean?
Yeah, makes sense.
And yes, and also my concern about this is how they are going to select the student from Fitchburg, you know what I mean? Because they are, how we are sure that the kids that they select are from Leopold School, for Verona School, you know, what is the selection process? Because they say they are going to select a student, but I would like to know more specifically because the money should stay only for support kids in Fitchburg. So And the school that they are in Fitchburg is Leopold,
Yep.
and the other school that is one of the Verona school district. Because but then if we talk about Cherokee, Otoki, and all of that, they feed all the neighborhood from other Madison.
Yep.
So I want to be specific that the school should be Leopold School, number one, and number two, it should be the school in the Verona School District.
Yeah, good point. I talked earlier about some folks submitted revised applications with additional information. This was one of the groups that I believe I followed up with because they didn't have number of unduplicated Fitchburg residents being served. So again, it didn't make it in your packet, but I do have that information. So this money would focus, I will confirm with them, but my understanding is this would focus all on Fitchburg residents.
Yeah, I would like, also when they prepare the final report, I would like to see the addresses of those students.
Sure. You know, and that is an issue with this program historically is, you know, we're in the border areas up there, right? So it does get difficult, and we do have mechanisms built in to make sure that the money goes to Fitchburg residents, but, you know, we just have to stay diligent with that, I guess, and, you know, figure out ways to continue to track that data.
Yeah, and I have another question. How they are going to provide assistance? They are going to pay for registration fee to the student to participate in this event?
Yeah, I think it's just, you know, like some of that, and I don't have their budget in front of me, but you know, I think paying for T-shirts, you know, events, organizing events, food, medals, trophies, you know, stuff like that. I don't know if anyone has the budget in front of them, but I think they were.
Katie, did you have a question while we look for that?
I had a question, but it was more broad based. So if we want to keep going with this, I do have the budget pulled up. It looks like T-shirts, running shoes, healthy snacks, first aid training, trailer maintenance, bike maintenance, bike repairs through Dream Bikes, race day buses, swim lesson transportation, salaries for coaches, MSCR, swim lessons, YMCA swim lessons, and Verona Aquatic Center swim lessons.
And then they're not paying directly, if memory serves, for the fees for the people to sign up, but they do have a scholarship program, right? So like anyone who needs it can get it. Something like that.
I'm seeing a tiered system, so all students who desire to participate are able.
Great. Okay. Well,
I guess before we were talking about unduplication of Fitchburg residents and making sure that the people that are benefited by this grant are actually from the city. Is there, I'm assuming there's other things in place to assure that, because I feel like Badger Prairie Needs Network, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Boys and Girl Club, they were kind of similar in that they had very like wide arcing goals that went across several neighborhoods, including other parts of Dane County. So do we have other methods in place to ensure that those are specifically Fitchburg residents?
You know, I think an issue here too is confidentiality among some of these groups. I mean, we have, at some level, there is a trust factor for these organizations. I mean, I asked them to give me, you know, they track addresses and they keep all that stuff in their database. So I'm sure if we went to them and say, hey, can we get a list of something, and they could potentially show us in confidence. But you know, at some level, we have to rely on, you know, they sign forms saying, you know, this is honest and that kind of thing. But so, yeah.
I have a question on page 258, 6 in the packet. So you mentioned where are the school, that the coaches, they're going to be funded. And then some of the teachers here, you know, Glacier Edge is Verona. Leopold is, you know, it's Madison, but it's in Fitchburg. Lincoln is Madison. Midvale is Madison. And Wright is Madison. So we shouldn't be funding with our money these 3 schools. You know what I mean? So I know that Wright is in North Fish Hatchery because it's in the North Fish Hatchery Road, but it's not in our North Fish Hatchery neighborhood. So maybe they're confused.
I think also part of it is I was looking at it of the coaching salaries. So they have 24,000 that goes towards coaching salaries, but they're only asking us to contribute 2,000 to it. So that could be, just for the schools that are, are Fitchburg focused.
Yeah, and usually what I do is, Big Brothers Big Sisters is a classic example where they will they have these programs that'll serve non-Fitchburg kids, but they will percentage out, their award based on the amount of Fitchburg kids. So that's kind of the model that I use, with these kinds of things, so.
So I am asking all this question because when I go to council, there are some people that they don't believe and they are against that the city is providing this grant, okay? So we need to be sure that the money stays in Fitchburg. That's it.
And then all of these grantees are paid after the fact, right? So that's like after they put in the reporting, say
Yep,
like.
Yep, so they
we
have to fill
did
out the reporting
supported
form.
X.
Yep, they submit an invoice with line item expenses identified that match their application. That goes through a review process, and then we cut them a check. Yep.
Got it. And is reporting required at that point as well, or no?
Is a reporting required when?
During the payment request process?
Yeah, so when they close out the project, that's when they report. So they complete the reporting form, and then they also submit an invoice with itemized receipt expenses.
Got it. So that's also like proof that they're supporting only Fitchburg people, is because at that point, then you can review their reporting and
Right, exactly.
ask questions as needed.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a nice safety measure. Katie, did you have a question? No, okay.
Wait, I have a clarifying question on that. So they
Yeah.
can't get reimbursed like mid-project? Oh,
Nope, our current model is reimbursement upon completion.
thanks for clarifying.
And I guess just another quick point, as long as we're just kind of talking about some issues, we do allow, this was a new thing a couple of years ago, we do now allow for personnel costs up to 20% of the award. So traditionally, we didn't allow for any personnel costs, and I understood the rationale for that, but at the end of the day, for these programs to work, people need to get paid, right? So we were able to get a 20% cap, and that's, I guess I should say, whatever is awarded them, they can, 20% of that can go towards personnel, so. And they have to submit, that's where, mid-project, we require a personnel activity report form, basically saying, here's who's been working on the project, here's how much we spent on them. So they do that at mid-project, they submit that, and then at project completion. So for folks that are asking for personnel costs to be covered, that's one additional reporting requirement that we do require.
That's great. So I had a general question. Out of all of them, out of all the grants or potential grantees, are there any that if, demand really outstrips supply here, that you would recommend like a partial award?
Yeah, just maybe I'll sum up everything, Emily, then I'll get to that point. So just quickly summing up, again, staff is recommending full awards for everyone that applied. Again, you kind of see the breakout of where the applications are in the neighborhood. I think it's, again, a nice equal geographical distribution. And then again, you see that chart that we talked about earlier. In terms of partial awards or, priority, maybe I'll just start with, our repeat partners, Badger Prairie Needs Network, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Club, Latino Academy, all good. Do you want to go ahead now, or? Want me to finish or? Okay.
Do partial award.
Okay. I think, one could make a case, maybe Little John's with the ice cream, that they could probably figure out a way to find $3,500 outside of Fitchburg. But, I think it's it's something new. I think it'll work over there. Try for schools, I understand some of the apprehension. Dear Diary, I feel good about it. Certainly if we can clarify some of their budget things, I think they do good work. Leopold School, again, I think they're only asking for $7,000. I think it's one of those projects that there's just those ripple effects throughout the neighborhood, throughout the community. So yeah, again, I feel good. It's not just because we've got enough money to cover everything. From a staff perspective, I feel good about all these projects. I'm probably evading your question, Emily, but
No,
yeah.
it sounded like a leading question, and I actually didn't mean it that way so much. I thought like overall, like the applications that came through were like very strong. I liked the mix of like some repeat partners, and especially the repeat partners that were looking at things like slightly differently. And so they weren't doing the exact same thing that they did, last year. I thought that was it was nice to see there was some evolution there. And I like that we had like a really good like distribution of like different categories that we were reaching. So I thought it was good. I remember last year where a lot of their awards were partial awards. And so it was more out of that I was thinking like, well, like, is there something that, I'm missing?
Good answer. If there was, I would probably do partial awards to everybody. I mean, I don't think I would not fund anybody, just my recommendation. If we had less money, I would probably look at partial awards for, across the board. There might be a couple. I'd probably recommend fully funding the youth mentoring ones, just again, because I feel like that's the literal upstream stuff that we're trying to, the kids, for lack of a better term. But, so yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone else have like any other comments, questions?
I want to comment why, we don't do partial award also. It's because this is our taxpayer money from the city of Fitchburg. We don't receive the money from other agencies. So in order for the council to be on board of this project, it gives more security. We provide the money when the project is done. So it's accountability. Be sure that the money it's our money because we are all live in Fitchburg. It get used. And the way those grants are, supposed to be. You know what I mean? So it's like a double security for us. When we vote on this, that the money is not going to be wasted. You know what I mean? So this is why I think it was decided a couple of years ago.
You're not talking partial awards. You're just saying that's why we reimburse it.
We reimburse at the
Not
end.
in the middle, yeah. No,
Yeah, reimburse at the end, yes. Yeah.
If I could add to that also, we've done, historically, we've done partial awards for a lot of organizations, and over time, I think as a group, we felt it was unfair to expect, because it's not a ton of money as it is, and to expect them to serve with the amount of people that they were proposing to serve, but with less money, it didn't feel good. So, this is the first year that we were able to fund everyone. It just feels really good that everyone's, that everyone's getting a good chunk of money or what they requested.
It's nice too, in terms of like a reporting perspective, both from like the grantee perspective, I was thinking, because they would have to do all the same reporting, like regardless of whether it was partial or full. And then also for staff, like having to wade through all of that and, go through payment requests and all of that, that's also a lot of work. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess a rule of thumb last year, I think it was the first year we did partials, and I tried, we ended up not doing anything that was less than half of what was requested.
Right.
And I think what's important to keep in mind then too is last year we were able to boost the award max to 15,000, whereas the year before it was 10, and we had the same applicant. So I guess what I'm getting at is even the folks that only got like 7,000, you know, they still, I think, to Ryan's point, we'd like to give them more, but they got an award that was, I think, worth their time and effort, so.
Yeah. All right. So does anyone else have any other comments, questions? Yeah.
I have a question before, I guess, I'm assuming the next step is to vote on this. So are we, like, we had questions for Dear Diary and we had questions for Try for Schools. Are we voting on this with the condition that they provide us that information before we award them the grant?
Yeah, I mean, I think what'll probably have to happen is, you guys will make, I guess, a recommendation, and you can direct staff to ask these questions. And then, you know, I will just, if council asks those questions, I can provide those answers. I can provide those answers to this committee. But, you know, it wouldn't come back to this committee for, you know, another vote, unless council directs us to, but, you know, that would not be a good scenario, in my opinion. So, because then it would delay everything, you know, our grantees couldn't get started, so.
So then, Wade, would you recommend that we do like a conditional approval, or basically approval and then like
Yeah,
more
I mean,
informally?
if there, I would just, yeah, I would say recommendation of approval of whatever you want with staff to get these questions answered. And then, I mean, I don't think there's gonna be red flags with answers to my questions, but if there are, I will be sure to present that to council and let them know that, you know, you weren't aware of that when you made your recommendation. And then they can, you know, make their decision. That's probably the most reasonable approach that I think would give you guys comfort and, you know, I think give the council comfort as well, so, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the applications as described here and recommended by staff.
With the, on the condition, should we say on the condition that the two questions be asked by staff, and if, I don't know.
I think you'd probably say direct
concern.
staff to
Yeah.
ask the questions as proposed by the committee and proceed accordingly, you know, something like that.
Thank you. Is that okay, Elizabeth? Are you good with that?
I think that's beautiful.
Okay. Great. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed, say nay. And I'm in favor. All right. Motion passes. All right. So now we're moving on to agenda item 5C. Resolution approving North Fishhatchery Road Hub Phase 1. Can I get a motion to open discussion? Is that right? On resolution R4522?
I move to open discussion.
I'll second.
Great.
All right, so I'll try to keep this brief, but probably give you a little bit of background, especially for new members. So yeah, this is literally, I don't know, the culmination of probably, I don't know how many years of work, but a lot of good hard work by city staff and some people in this room, among others. So what's in front of us, again, we're looking for a recommendation to basically recommend to council to approve a hub, North Hedge Road Hub Phase 1 final design, which also would imply a specific budget and then scenarios to get that budget covered. So the gist of it is, we came up with a hub Phase 1, and I could talk about what that is. A concept a couple years ago, I think it was April of, maybe November of 2020, we actually finalized the concept. Was it nine? Well, yeah, a couple of years ago. We'll show you what that concept is. We came up with what we call construction cost estimates for implementing that concept. Again, that was 2 years ago. I think we all know what's happened with inflation in the past 2 years. So the gist of it is the current, so we went from concept to final design. Final design is basically where we get all the real hard numbers in terms of costs that were kind of initiated with the concept. So our hard numbers now for final design are coming in much higher than what we budgeted for. And it's not just inflation, it's also because in that concept, there were certain elements that we never budgeted for. And then we've also added a feature in the final design that was never even discussed in the concept. So those are the three factors that are kind of leading to this budget exceeding, or cost exceeding budget. So again, back in 2020 or so, we budgeted 2.4 million for the hub phase 1. And maybe I'll just try to get into some of these options here. Just bear with me. Oops. So I think what I'll just quickly do, and I know folks know what the hub is, but I want you to be familiar with because the gist of the discussion here will be, what does this committee want to recommend building and funding in hub phase 1? So those are the things that I want you to be clear on what we're discussing here.
Can I add something while you're looking?
Sure.
So when we discussed this in 2019, 2020, how we are going to fund this project. So because the location where is this park is an extension of the Nine Spring Golf Course. That one is a community park. So a couple of years ago, like I think 2 years ago, the council added a parcel that we have in north of Tracy Way to be part of the community park, to be part of the Nine Spring Community Park. So what does it mean? That when new development come to the city, if they cannot provide land for a park, they need to pay what we call park dedication fee or land. So we have a lot of new development in the north part of Fitchburg Road where they didn't allocate parkland, but they need to pay those fees. Those fees generally are very high fees. But those fees can be only used for community parks. The city of Fitchburg has only 4 community parks. McKee is one, Mago, Nine Spring Golf, and what is the other one? Jamestown?
McKee, McGaw, the golf course, and that's it.
That's it. We have 3 community parks. So the idea was to fund this park, the majority with park dedication fees, and the rest with debt, that we as a taxpayer of the city of Fitchburg, we had to pay for that eventually. But, so this is what you will see in the funding section, funding sources. So from where some of these park dedication fees are coming, from which parks, okay? And the idea how we can use those park fees to fund the majority of this park. The other thing that I want to mention to all of you is, for the new people, is 11% of our population live in that north part of Fitchburg Road, where we have most of the people that live there, they live in multifamily, in apartments. They don't have a patio, they don't have a backyard. And the city, for many, many years, didn't invest in any park in that area. You will say, yeah, we have the Nine Spring, the golf course. Yeah, the golf course is you need to pay to use the golf course. In the only moments that you can use the park is open to everyone, is in winter. But starting April, you want to be use the park, you need to pay to play golf. So for an equity lens, we need to determine that this is a great, a great building in that area that have been neglected for many, many years. And also because we invested $30 million in the reconstruction of Fish Hatchery Road to attract development. And we are attracting a lot of development. Most of the development are coming as you see, they are multifamily. There are 2 other projects in the pipeline that they are going to be fair market apartments that they are coming to the area. So that park also can be an economic development catalyst to attract more development to the area, because people can say, okay, I can rent an apartment in North Fish Hatchery Road because there is a great park 2-3 blocks away from where I live. So, and also because we need to provide the same opportunity that the rest of us, including myself, that I live in one of the Seminole neighborhood, and I have 2 blocks away from my house, I have a very nice park. We had to offer those amenities to people that they live in the north part of Fish Hatchery. This one is going to be also an urban park, because some council members are saying why we don't have, we don't have amenities like a soccer field or baseball. This is going to be an urban park, the design, because that one is our urban area in the north part of Fish Hatchery. We don't have too many, the parcel is not too big to incorporate other amenities. And the other thing that I want to mention, in order for us to use park dedication fee, we need to bring unique feature to the park. That because it means that it's going to attract people not only in the neighborhood, people from other parts of the city are going to go to the park. This is a community park. So this is what is important, that you will see that one of the features there is all-wheel, all-wheel truck, or some of the shelter, okay? The cover shelter, so those one are unique feature to this park. So that's it.
Yeah, no, just picking up on those points, well said. I think a goal of this project when we started was to create a hub. To create what the name implies, meaning a center of activity for the neighborhood and for the broader community. And I think with the things we've planned here, that goal has been met. Whether or not we get those implemented, that's the question before us. But yeah, it's intended to be a hub of activity to attract the community. I think Julia's points about geography and land use type are very important. This corridor gets 50,000 cars per day, one of the most heavily trafficked corridors in our region. To Julia's point, it's incredibly dense. There's a lot of people up there, and there isn't currently any developed city park space. So, and again, that idea of a community space means we can use a certain pot of money to get things funded up there, as long as it serves the broader community. So I think that's a good preface of the conversation. So again, I know folks have probably seen this before, or at least some of you, but just quickly looking at the layout. Traceway Drive is down here, bottom of my screen. Fish Hatchery Road is perpendicular out to the right here. Our golf course is kind of just to the south, and then Leopold School is kind of just to the northwest. So again, a few different features I want to touch on. Obviously parking lot, nothing too exciting there. But then we have this outdoor covered structure, which we'll show you pictures of. Could service both recreational activities as well as social gathering activities, whether it's, farmers markets, movie nights, mini concerts, those sorts of things. Then we've got a community, well, it's basically a shelter building, a park shelter building. But I think it'll have a few features that our traditional park shelters may not have. And again, we think that's reflective of the neighborhood up there, what their needs, as well as attracting the broader community. And then we've kind of got this pedestrian area that connects the site. You could set up food carts on there. There'd be some socializing, seating areas, kind of in that middle of that site. To the right of that, we have a playground. And then Julia talked earlier about this bike track. That's kind of this big feature here. A trend in outdoor recreation and parks, but one you're seeing more often. Basically kind of a bike obstacle course. Sarah's our local bike business. They've been a supporter of these kind of elements from years ago, and they are a supporter of this project as well. So that's something to keep in mind. And again, just to the right, you'll see some images of, kind of what these things will look like if and when they get built. So here's just another image of the pump track, that bike feature. Again, we're envisioning a hard court or hard surface, not dirt. For folks that are interested, there's a similar feature at Leopold Park in Madison, just to the northwest, and it's incredibly popular. And I think some folks are asking, well, if you got one up there, why do you need one here? I think that's asking, if you have a basketball court there, why do you need one here? There's a demand there. And I think this feature, we're actually working with the same consultants that did the Leopold track at Madison, and we asked them to create a feature here that would complement the Leopold track and not duplicate it. And I think they've accomplished that goal. And then you see this, again, this is kind of a floor plan of that outdoor covered hard court. You see how it could be set up for both full court basketball as well as, maybe pickleball. And then, have space for, again, various social gathering events as well. And I just want to quickly touch on the blueprint of the building. On the right here, we've kind of got our community spaces. These could be reservable rooms for neighborhood gatherings, maybe an adult education class. We have some office space, maybe our navigators or if a social worker is looking for a space to meet a client, they could rent that office space for an hour or two. We are envisioning maybe a computer or two in there if a resident wants to come in and get some computer time. That could be set up that way. And then restrooms, storage, kind of the boring stuff. And then we are envisioning a window here, concession window, to service the outdoor picnic area. It could be, potentially we could get a third-party concessionaire in there serving coffee or sandwiches or whatever it might be. And then to the left here, we're envisioning a rental window as well for various things that could happen on that hard court. So with that, I'd just like to turn to some pictures. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So again, hopefully this gives you a sense of the space. This is that outdoor covered hard court. So this is kind of the west side of the site looking east back towards Fish Hatch. Oops. This is looking the other way. We would envision, if we have movie nights or concerts, folks could set up down here. We are envisioning, maybe the opportunity for a mural wall as kind of a backdrop, again, a way to get the community engaged. This gives you a good sense of the building, its connection to that outdoor covered structure. This is another feature that we're proposing. Again, we want it to be a year-round, 8-hour, 12-hour a day in-use facility. So in the winter, obviously, I think we may still be in winter here in Wisconsin, but this would give folks something to do, 4 or 5 months out of the year with an ice skating rink. Again, a unique feature to the region. This is looking at the back of the site towards Traceway. You see that picnic space, outdoor picnic space, those rental windows that I talked about as well. And this kind of gives you a real sense of how it could be a social space. During the warmer months, fire pits, picnic areas. This is that pedestrian area that we talked about earlier. And then you see how the building connects to the pedestrian area and then connects to the playground as well. Just another image. And just a quick point, I know we probably don't have too many architectural urban form wonks here, but we did try to make the architecture match our existing city architecture to kind of create some symmetry and, with our library and our city hall and community center. Similarly, up there, Julia mentioned kind of the urban element, it's not suburban, it's urban. So you'll notice kind of that setback, close to the road. In those buildings, they're flat roof, they're not kind of the suburban peaks. So there was a lot of thought put into making a real nice aesthetically appealing facility as well. And this just gives you kind of a cut through of the building. So kind of down here where my cursor is, that's where you'd enter off a traceway, office space on the right, hallway in the middle. Again, we're envisioning maybe opportunities for public art, maybe partnering with some of the school districts to get some artwork in there. And then off to the right, you see those community rooms as well. All right, so now you have kind of that background, just quickly talking about, what's in front of you. So we've essentially created 4 options as it relates to hub amenities, as we just discussed, and budgets and costs. So option A, and I guess I would categorize it, option A is like full boat expensive, option B is middle of the road, option C is low cost budget option. So option A is everything we just looked at. Expensive, we're talking probably close to $6 million. So, that's a lot of money, but we're getting a lot of things for that. And what you see here is both the funding sources, which Julie mentioned, Parkland dedication. We are hoping to get some grants and some other partner support. And then there would be borrowing required as
Katie, did you have a
well.
question?
Yeah,
Or can you see?
yeah. Can you hear me?
You're a little low, but we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, the headphones really inhibit the volume. I had a question on the previous page. It says, be it further resolved by the Fitchburg Common Council that it does not accept a $100,000 grant from Dane County. What is that about?
We had applied for, so every year the feds, CDBG is basically Fed money that comes through HUD, and it gets passed through the county and then down to municipalities. So we had applied, I think sometime this summer for, I think it was 350,000-ish in funds for that building to cover some costs of those buildings. To be fully frank, I knew that money came with a lot of strings attached. At that point, I asked if I could understand better what those strings are or were going to be. I didn't get a whole lot of response to that. And then a couple of months ago, we were given a preliminary award of $100,000, not the $350,000. And then at that point, we were able to see some of those strings. And in talking with other staff, it's staff's opinion that the strings are not worth $100,000. We would have to probably hire a third party to do all sorts of reporting. Just to get the thing built. Once we get it built, we'd have to track our residents, ask if they're low income, turn that reporting over to the county. So just lots of strings, lots of hoops. So staff is going to recommend that we don't accept that award. We felt like we needed council approval to turn that award down. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what that means. And I want to point out that this grants and partner support in this table is independent of that. That's different sources we hope to get from some other grants and some other partners. So that's separate and unique. I do want to point out that's unsecured at this point, but we are optimistic that we can get that amount of money. But yeah, good question. And then, in terms of, so again, with every option here, you'll see a funding source with kind of line items fleshed out, and then you'll see all the cost components that get you to that price tag. So again, to get to this price tag, we're including everything that we just talked about. Now, I do want to point out in the initial budget allocation of $2.4 million, we did not include the covered hard court, and then we also did not even plan for the ice rink. So this $1.5 million is something that we didn't even budget for. So I think that's important to keep in mind. And then you add in inflation, which according to our consultants in the past 2 years in the construction industry has been 15%. So what was 600,000 2 years ago is like roughly now 900,000. So again, you start to see why things are getting higher. So again, that's option A, and then don't ask me to explain this graph because I cannot do it, but this is something our finance people, this is their tracking system, and we just wanted everyone to have full information on kind of the finances. And basically what it boils down to is it identifies all those different developments in which parkland dedication funds can be used to support this project. So really these numbers are simplified and reflected in that some of those line items that you saw in that first table.
Wait, a question on that, like, so would we be wiping out all of like the community park fund bucket?
No, and that's a really good point. Pretty much everything we are proposing in terms of using park dedication funding for this project is relative to that neighborhood. Meaning there's,
Okay,
and we will get those like our parks director has all those numbers, but there will be substantial funds left in this account, that can go towards other community parks. So we're not depleting the fund by any means. Certainly that's an option, if council decides they
Yeah.
want to pull, Fahey Fields money, they can do that.
right.
But staff is not proposing wiping out that account by any means.
Okay, so it's really like collecting all the funds, both like, is it both neighborhood and community for
Yeah,
that
so that's a good
northern
point. So you're,
region, or-
being on plan commission, Emily, you probably know some of these projects. So like, the Plesco project, Ochala, Quarry Ridge. Again, some of these there might be a little bit of money coming from outside the
Yeah.
neighborhood, but again, broader point being is that this proposal is not wiping that account, clean.
Can I make a comment?
Okay, yeah, because there are like some, like a lot of them are in the north, but like the Limestone Ridge, like that's out by Target, so
Yeah, so
that's why I was questioning some of that.
Emily, I printed another report from the Parks Commission We have a meeting on Thursday.
Yeah,
So we are going to discuss this, but in the
Okay.
packet from Parks, there is a nice a spreadsheet from which are the parks we are getting the funds and which are the parks that we are not getting some of the park dedication. So there are plenty of money there that we are not going to touch because they are assigned to other parks in the city. So we are not depleting the park dedication bucket, okay, fund, okay?
okay. And some of this too, like why some of the other stuff like Limestone Ridge or some of that's because there's like a set time limit, right? And so it's like that needs to be spent before other stuff can get spent.
Some of the
that
funds
right?
are time restricted and some are not they are not time restricted, but they are restricted, some of them to the location geographically too. So there are a
Gotcha.
lot of variable on how to use this
Yeah.
park dedication fee. So
Yeah, and I would just add, so this list is reflective of a conversation between myself, the Parks Director, and our Finance Director. And we all felt good about including justifying these as funding, covering some of the funding, and the stuff we couldn't justify, the stuff that Fahey Fields or whatever it was, we left out, so.
Okay, that's great to know. Thank you.
Yep.
Wait, can I ask one other background question?
yeah, but I want to mention something before,
Sure.
according to my numbers here from Parks, from the Parks Commission packet, there are almost, I think, $7 million in parks dedication, something like that. We are gonna use, 3.9 million, so something like that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, so a little more than half. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And just one other quick point, Elizabeth, before and then you can go ahead, but I do want to make a point too, if folks can see this, bear with me here, this 770, 740 number
Yeah.
for the Traceway North project. So as of now, if that's a project literally right by the hub, the developer of that project loves the hub. That is all the money that they would owe us per our ordinance in terms of funding. They are proposing an alternate scenario, which will come before council soon, in which they would do a combination of land dedication, some other things they would throw in there, and then they would give us $260,000-ish. So I just want to point out that all the tables you see are under the assumption that we will get that 770. If we don't get the 770, and if things stay the way they are, that would mean the borrowing number would go up by 500,000.
Bad balance.
So
Okay.
just a point of clarification. And again, I don't know what the outcome of that'll be, but we made an assumption with this table that we would get all that money and not kind of do that more of a different deal that's being proposed, so.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so again, that's option A, that's all the bells and whistles. Option B, which I will call design modification number 1, is everything we've discussed, except the hard court does not have a full cover on it. It has a partial cover, which could serve as like almost think like an amphitheater type setup where you got you could have a stage, people could set up their instruments under there, play concerts. We could have a little movie screen underneath there, but not the full covered area like we saw. And then the other big piece that would be missing from here is no ice rink. So again, we would have no kind of winter activity, of that magnitude up there. So with that, again, we drop about 1.8 million. So we're down to, let's call it 4.4. And again, you see how that lays out with our 3 funding sources: parkland dedication, partner support, grants, and then borrowing as well. Now, again, that's kind of the middle cost option. The low cost
Can
option.
I ask a question on that? So
Sure.
how easy would it be to, like, for example, if we fund just a partial cover, then later build out a full cover is?
Yeah, and talking to the consultants, it's you kind of got to do it now or you're not going to be able to do it. I could see a scenario, and I don't think it's an ideal scenario, where, let's say you don't do any covered structure right now, you just leave it grass, and then maybe a year or 2 from now, you build something there, whether it's partial or full. Or you could potentially I think if you put if you just put a regular basketball court down there with no covering, I think it'd be hard to come in later and do a covering. So I think it's either grass, save the full boat for later, or, and we'll get into that, but various iterations of that hard court now. So this would be a partial covered iteration of that hard court. So, does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I'm a little worried I don't see any gender neutral bathrooms.
Yep, good point. We are discussing a revision to do that. Yep. So again, I guess let's call it option B. Again, the various numbers to get there. Now, option C is literally as close as we could get to budget without, while still trying to keep a hub, for lack of a better term. And again, keep in mind, inflation. So with here, we're at about 3.2. Again, you lose a lot with this. I would call this option design modification 2. Basically, you have just a basketball court, just a covered hard court, no cover, no ice rink, no pump track. So the bike feature is gone. And then you do various things that reduce the cost of the building, which again aren't ideal, but you would see some savings. And again, that gets you as close to budget as staff felt comfortable getting to while keeping some semblance of the hub, intact. So the fourth option, which is basically kind of a create your own. So, it could be fully covered hard court with no ice rink. It could be pretty much anything that this committee or the council wants. And then you see the various, elements kind of identified there. Now, just a little bit more context, then you guys are free to discuss. I think at the last committee meeting, we weren't quite this formal with information and data, but there was an interest from this committee in proceeding with the full boat implementation, that option A, and then basically finding funding sources to cover that. And certainly that that sentiment can change, but I just want to remind the committee of your sentiment at the earlier meeting. And that was obviously before half you new folks were here. And one other thing I want to point out, so phase 2, which we're not there yet, this is, again, phase 1, north side of Traceway. We did plan for a phase 2, just bear with me, or we created a concept for a phase 2. All right, so phase 2 would be on the south side of Traceway Drive. And the phase 2 concept called for a large footprint neighborhood center. I think there could be a case made that this building could now serve some of those functions, not all of them, but some of them. So once we get direction on phase 1 final design, we will then go back to that phase 2 concept and figure out what that final design could look like. In my opinion, staff's opinion, it could look like, I don't think it needs to look like the huge footprint neighborhood center. It could be a smaller footprint neighborhood center, or it could just be a pocket park. But my point is that there was initial funds allocated for that phase 2 in the manner of about $5 million. That was all borrowing, not Parkland dedication, but that's another piece of the puzzle here that I want folks to be aware of, again, as we discuss, those options A, B, C, and D. So with that, I think I'm done.
5 million, sorry, was already in the budget, or that would be borrowing, or?
Julia, go
sorry,
ahead.
Where is that?
Okay, so that was approved in 2020 with a different council.
Right.
I don't think the current composition of the council will allow for that, to be honest. So yes, we allocated $5 million for the teen center and $5 million for the hub of phase 2. But to be honest, it's all up to, it's no, I will not count with that. You know what I mean? I will be very, how can I say, hesitant to say, yeah, we have the $5 million. No.
Okay.
It's a plan. In the CIP, it was approved, yes, by other council, not the current one.
Got it. Okay.
I have a question about borrowing. So I see there are plans to either borrow maybe like $2 million or $500,000. What kind of interest rate would that be at? Can someone help me with what the loan would look like?
Usually with the city go to borrow money, we go and borrow we issue bonds, municipal bonds. And some of them, if we have other project, we are gonna go and issue like a $5 million or $10 million, because we also go and borrow like $10 million in bonds. Usually those one are very low rates right now, you know what I mean? So I don't know what's gonna happen in a couple of years when the Fed start increasing the interest rate, but now this is how the finance director does it. Is she say, okay, we have to build this and this and this. Okay, we bundle and I say, we need $10 million. We issue bonds, you know what I mean? So this is how we do it.
And one other point too, just full information, again, none of this is guaranteed, but being a planner, I would not be surprised if we will see additional residential development in this corridor, which means additional Parkland dedication funds. I don't know how much and when that'll come. But, I think logically, you could make a case that will come, and it will be substantial, and it should be allocated towards the hub. So again, just things that, in your calculus, things to keep in mind.
Yeah. One question I had with the current structure for phase 1, given that phase 2 is more up in the air, shall we say, how can community resources use the structure that is planned? Like, could a food pantry come in and provide services if they wanted to?
Yeah, good question. I think that's, it's a really good question. Something we've been, I think, let me get there. So in my opinion, it's essentially a park shelter, right? But it's a park shelter on a larger scale, okay? So what that means is that these sorts of spaces we have in our existing shelters, but these will be bigger. And I think we can set them up with basic tech. So if Latino Academy wants to come in and do an adult education class, they could do it. They could also be set up for, corporate events or family reunions, neighborhood gatherings, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And then, but again, so this to me is just like park shelter space, but maybe one step above, right? Then we have an office space, which we don't normally have in our park shelters. But again, I think per the neighborhood up there, this is a good thing. Then everything else is just like what you would see in a park shelter. So I don't see a third-party service provider working out of this space. So I think the two things you would still need, or not need, but could be justified in this neighborhood are space for permanent city staff presence, additional capacity for community or rec spaces, and then leasable space for third-party program and service providers. So I think if the city were to do a phase 2 building, those are the things that I think could go in there that would not be duplicated up here. Does that make sense?
It does.
So again, I think sometimes folks get the connotation like this is a mini neighborhood center. I mean, no.
No.
It'll serve the neighborhood, but there'll still be needs up there that will not be addressed in this building, so.
Okay. And then one last question I had, can you walk us through the ongoing costs, like the yearly cost for like upkeep and
Yeah, good point. I
maintenance?
forgot that.
And then also like to provide some context, because I just don't know, is it like, are these numbers, where do they match up to what other community parks are
Yeah, so
costing on
those
an
numbers are
annual
put together by our parks director based on his 30 years of experience or whatever.
Yeah.
And then more specifically with the ice rink, we did reach out to Monona. They have an ice rink similar to this, and we got basically all their numbers. So we kind of did some cutting and pasting, but yeah, I'll run through those quickly. Because that's a good point. There will be, for a facility of this scale, there will be operating costs. So what I try to do is, bullet point 1 here, Roman numeral 1 is, let's just call it basic gross operating costs for phase 1, just landscaping, snow removal, so not a whole lot there. But then getting into the building, obviously there's going to be operating costs, just cleaning, utilities, building attendance for when the facility is reserved. So year 1, you see, I think it's 194, and then year 2, after we've bought some equipment, you could see maybe 84,000-ish, into, the first decade or so. And I do want to point out with this scenario, it's not going to be a fully staffed building. It would be open when reserved, but it wouldn't be like a come in, come out, open door kind of thing. And then again,
Is that including the bathrooms?
I think the bathrooms, I can't remember what's been decided on that, but the bathrooms would be open during normal park hours.
Okay.
So definitely from the outside, then probably from the inside, our design would allow for like a hallway, that people could get inside to the bathrooms. But yeah, so those would be open.
Okay.
And then, we would envision revenue from that building as well as from the hard court. So you kind of see how that breaks out in terms of, potential revenue. And it's basically rental fees for all those different areas. So what that means is, operating the gross cost, minus the revenue gets your net. So for phase 1, including the site, the building, and the hardcore, I think our estimate is 68 or 69 the first year, and then 59 from there on out. And again, these are estimates, but based on best available data. And then if you add in the ice rink, again, this is where we got numbers from Monona. Substantial startup costs in year 1. But then certainly years two, you decrease a little bit. And then again, there would be revenues with that, whether it's rentals or lessons or, whatever it might be. So with the ice rink, again, I think you're looking at, a good chunk of change for the first year, but then you're moving on out from there after probably 50,000. So, with the full boat, you're talking 50,000 plus, what was it, 58? So what, 110 for everything? And then if you take the ice rink out, you're probably talking just, 60 to
60
70,
basically.
yep.
So with that, is that like similar to like a McKee Park, for example?
I mean, I think, so this stuff would be like bear with me. So, the Roman numeral 1 would be,
Yeah.
I assume, Roman numeral 2 would be,
Okay.
I think the 2 and 3 are kind of reflective of what we see at, McKee Shelter Rentals. But of course, the ice rink, we don't have experience with that.
Right.
So that's,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think
Well, that's over and above.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's helpful. Thank you.
I had a question about, I know that Julia had brought up in the ARPA and TID funding to increase hub funding. And I think if I'm remembering, it was approved. So how would that impact like borrowing, and when would that money be available?
Yeah, so this was prepared prior to that being approved. So yeah, Julia, do you have information on that?
We approved only $200,000 for the all-wheel truck to cover the gap.
So basically, yeah, you would see everything. That's a good point, though. In option C, we don't have the all-wheels track. So I guess it would just reduce options A and B by 200,000.
Okay, I want to mention other thing that, this is going to come to council as an amendment to the budget because we are moving funds between park dedication fee to other, to fund this. So we need 2/3 of the vote. It means that we have 6 persons who say yes. So we have a preview discussion a couple of weeks ago, and there are some others that they are not, I would say, practically, they are concerned about the cost. They don't understand the need. To be honest, I don't know if the votes are going to be there. The president of the council decided to do a committee of the whole meeting where we are going to go and discuss this in, the council in April. When is that meeting?
April 20, the 3rd.
And I will invite all of you to listen to the meeting.
7th.
Because the idea is, okay, if we really want to build this, how we're going to do it? Because the cost is beyond what we anticipated like in 2019. My personal opinion, I'm going to give you my personal opinion and how I see this. I don't care. At this point, the ice rink is a nice feature. But I am not going to support the ice rink because I don't think that the rest of the council will approve this, okay? So for me, the ice rink, it wasn't in the original design. It's something that maybe we can add in the future if there are more development coming to the corridor and more park dedication fee that we can add, yes, but it's not like something that we need to have it, I really want to have the shelter. I really want to have a cover, a surface, a basketball court. I would like to have the cover, completely covered, the fully covered, but I don't think that we'll have the vote for that. I will compromise for half of the partially covered, but I would like to see the all-wheel track because that one is a unique feature for this park, okay? So this is the other thing that I would like to see in this park. You know, of course, I would like to see the whole package, but also I am practical, and I know the people in council, and I need to look for a compromise. And now that we need 6 votes, it's even more scary for me. So I know that, I know that there are some features that we can add in the future if we have more park dedication fee coming to the corridor, and because I am sure this corridor is gonna grow and we are gonna attract more development. But right now we need to provide a park in that area. And I really, I am not even thinking about phase 2. I don't even thinking about phase 2. Phase 2 is in the future. I think we need to provide a park, a recreation in this area for many, many reasons. I already mentioned to you at the beginning of my speech. So this is why, when mine is like a B, the option B could be for me an option. C, I will say no, because I would like to have the all wheel track. I think I feel comfortable with a B option. But then I don't know how I will have a better idea how to read the council on this April meeting. It's coming at the end of the month. But I think we need to, the idea is that we have only $3.6 million in park dedication fee to start building this park. It's great, and we need to, I would like to have your support, when it's May 10 and we need to vote for this. I would like you to send email to the council, tell to your neighbors what is important, support. We will need to have all the support, a school from everywhere, because we need to build this park. That area really needed. But also I am practical, and I am concerned about the cost too.
And just another quick point for new committee members, the council can take whatever committee's recommendation at their discretion. It's in an ideal world, you would think, recommendations, have impact, but it may or may not. So just to be clear on, kind of what you're doing here, and prepared for different outcomes that might arise, so.
I have a question about how this would be presented to council. I see that, there's maybe anxiety that they might not even accept option B, or maybe I'm misinterpreting what was just said. But what I'm wondering is, can we present them with 2 options, as in like a high option that, includes everything. In sales, that's, kind of setting the high bar, right? And then you present a different option, maybe option B, and you say, okay, this is another option if you don't like option A. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but this packet is already moving through commission and it's public, so we cannot change it. You know what I mean?
Are you saying the recommendation that comes from this body, though?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that's an option. Yeah, I'm just trying to, it'd kind of be like a recommendation with 2 options, right? Yeah.
As in, like our committee would feel comfortable with either option, and we want, general counsel to see both options, something like that. I mean, I am totally spitballing. I don't know how this works.
Katie, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I had a few questions. One, Julia, when was the meeting for the council of the whole to discuss this?
It's going to be April 27th at, I believe, is it 7? Yep.
Okay. And then you said the vote was May 10th? I couldn't hear.
And just so folks are
Yes.
aware too, so there's 2 committees that this is being referred to, this committee, and then it'll go to Park Commission this Thursday at 7, if folks are interested in watching that discussion as well, or attending or whatever, so.
And then on May 10, it's gonna go to Finance Committee and then to Council. But the Council has the final word, so.
So on May 10th, it's not going to council. It's going to.
May 10, the Council will vote yes or no for this.
Okay. Okay. So I guess then my next question is, like, say we as a committee present option B, is the only option that, like, is there a chance that council could completely say no, like no park?
Yeah.
And I guess the thing there is we are under contract with consultants for $235,000. And that's reflective of 10% of that initial estimate. So, I mean, I believe we'd have to pay out the contract at a minimum, which I've never been a part of, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, but like with it, like to answer your question, like we could say like, we love B, please do B, and then they could come back and say, actually what we want to do is C, or, we want to do A. Like, it's basically to what Wade was saying before. It's like we can make a recommendation and they'll take it under consideration, but they're not bound to follow our recommendation.
And my recommendation would be, I don't really think there's a strategy here, to be honest. I think that's kind of what we're talking about. And I would just recommend, again, you can take this or leave this, but this advice, but just do what you think is best for this committee and this city and that neighborhood. And I think the chips will fall where they may. But that would be having worked on this thing for a long time, that would be my recommendation.
Okay. Then I feel okay with option B. I will say option B doesn't have the full cover, which is kind of a bummer. So I'm not sure how, like, if that could be added, if people think that is like a valuable ad in terms of will council downvote that? I don't know, but that's my 2 cents for right now.
Elizabeth.
Thanks. Yeah, boy, this has really been helpful, and this is sure not easy. This is like hacking off the arm of a child that you've been raising for 3 years or something. It's bad. I feel like B is not quite ambitious enough. And I think I was going the same place Katie was, with perhaps thinking about adding the full cover. I don't know why, but I just envision that being so central to what's happening here, to making that space useful for many more days out of the year. It may not be a season, but it's days. I also was thinking about how you could use that space if it had a cover on it for something besides basketball and movies and things. There's lots of other possibilities in there. So that's one thought that I had. I guess a question I had is, in the original proposal, was there no borrowing at all?
Yeah, so it was all, I believe, parkland dedication. But again, there were elements that weren't planned for or budgeted for. There were elements that weren't designed.
But there was no borrowing.
No, yeah, it was.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. It was like I remember because I drafted that amendment. When I drafted, it was like use most park dedication and the rest finance with debt. But the idea was to be a small amount.
Yeah, but I guess it's not like we're changing the original plan from no borrowing, which I think is a bigger step, and it would be nice to point that out. I think that there was borrowing planned originally. I guess the only other question I would love to understand is, given that there is an all-wheel track at Leopold, is there any value in, and I know, Julia, you said you really want this, and of course I want to support you, but is there any value in letting go of that in this budget and using the funds to create the hard court with a cover for now? Because we already have at least some option for that bicycle, that all wheels track in the community.
my understanding, I don't know, wait, is that this all-wheel track is more, you can also have a skateboard too. This is what we call all-wheel track, okay? And also is more for, targeted to more younger people, isn't it?
I mean, it's the whole demographic. It's,
Yeah.
youth, teens, everybody, yep.
Yeah. But the difference is because we are also, skateboards can use the.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I guess a couple of thoughts there. I think to the points that are being made, it's a really unique feature that I think would be, it would draw people. It would be a true community, if not regional feature. Saris has been very supportive of the project and has also been very, their advice would be do this thing now versus later. I think they see a lot of these projects that just they keep getting pushed out, in terms of these pump tracks. But to counter that, I feel like from a planning perspective, this is probably the one feature, and again, I could be wrong, but this is the one feature that you could probably build later. The hard court, you're committed. If you don't do a cover, a partial cover, the building, you're obviously committed. The pump track, maybe you could figure out a construction scenario where everything else gets constructed, and then a year or two from now, you've got that canvas to do your pump track. So just, again, things to think about.
Right.
I would also add that the pump track at Leopold, I mean, it's wonderful for what it is, but it is it doesn't have very many features for bikes, as in I have a lot of friends who, are avid mountain bikers, and, we like to go on maybe more places that have a lot more features. We'll put it that way. So, I mean, the Leopold track is great for what it is, but the pump track that's proposed here is just so much more extensive and interesting.
Yeah, and that's a design goal was to appeal to, to be all ages and all uses, but to really draw teens and experts and make it challenging. And I think that's reflected in this design, so, yep.
And to that point, that I think that's what's going to bring the attention, is just something different than other parks throughout Madison and Fitchburg and other areas. So I was originally thinking of compromising also and going with B. But the more I think about it, the more I think council's going to do what they're going to do, and my feeling is like council is, they're just going to be thinking about the bottom dollar and the budget, and so I think I would personally like to see everything. I think if we, from our perspective, serving the community and doing what's best for the community, I think I would like to see everything approved. So my recommendation would be for everything, and let council decide what they want to decide.
Yeah, I came into this thinking option B, but also really wanting to make sure that at least there was like the covered hard court, because I was thinking like you could have, concerts and movies, and then like a really nice farmer's market where, you don't have to have like little pup tents necessarily. Like people could just have tables. And I think it opens up the park for like so many other uses, like Elizabeth was saying. Like I definitely agree with that. The one thing that I love everything about option A, and I'd like to get everything that is in that option, but I am like feeling a little gun shy with the borrowing being as high as it is. But I also like it. I mean, perhaps there's like a creative way that it could be, built over time. And I'm also really interested in like, perhaps like we get the covered hard court, but then perhaps have like the pump track be, you know, a secondary build, because it's not as time dependent as the other ones, it seems. So, yeah, I'm mixed is basically where I'm coming down. Elizabeth, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I guess just to the points that have been made, I feel like the covered hard court is pretty important. And one of the points we've made is that there's not a whole lot of space in the building for community use. And that cover expands the ways that that hard court space could be used and potentially rented. So that is the one thing I guess I'm kind of hung up on. I don't want to break anybody's heart about the pump track. I do think the ice rink, I love it. I used to skate and I think it's really cool. I also was thinking about strategically, if you were going to raise money for things, is it easier to raise money for cool features than it is to build buildings and do landscaping and things like that? And could we potentially raise money for the pump track or for the rink over time?
Yeah, good
I
question.
think
So
we
I guess,
should charge the fee for the ice cream maker. That all that money goes to the ice rink then, right? That's the connection tonight.
so for the pump track, so Saris is, we're still talking about what their support looks like, but everything I've been discussing with them leads me to believe there will be financial support from them for the pump track at some level. So I think we have some corporate sponsorship there. You know, the covered structure, the ice rink, yeah, it's a really good point. In Monona, I believe Monona Bank has naming rights to the ice rink. I don't know what they pay per year, but they support that ice rink. You know, it's not currently my skill set to be a corporate fundraiser, you know, maybe someday, but I think if we have, you know, a strategy here and from the city and we're allowed to do so, you know, we could start putting together some information and try to knock on doors and, you know, see what kind of corporate support there might be. So yeah, I think those are all, you know, things we talked about and just need to figure out an approach.
That for the corporate fundraising, we had to be very careful. The city staff cannot do it. Elders cannot do it. So we need to have a group of friends or other organization doing the fundraising for us. I am doing this with Inclusive Playground. I started that project in 2018, and it's going to be finalized this year. But I have to remove myself and some city staff for doing the asking for corporate donations. So then you need to have another group of people that they are going to be doing all the fundraising, and it's managing another group of people. Believe me. So I think that for the all-wheel track, we have the $200,000 allocated from ARPA, some fund from SARIS, and then we have some fund from CDBG. Or no?
Well, I think we're in pretty good shape to get at least 75,000 from Dane County, if not more.
Yeah.
We should find that out in the next month or so.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got a lot of pots there, yep.
Julia, just reading the council, how do you feel about adding and I didn't do the math, Wade, how much the full roof would cost, but Julia, how do you feel about the likelihood of that?
Slim.
Okay, reality intervenes.
So I think the attachment, so basically for the partially covered, for option B, we cut the full cover in half in terms of cost. So for a full cover, you would add another 400,000 to that 4,360.
But guys, remember, you can recommend council what you want to see, and if you want to see the whole thing and you feel comfortable, it's fine. The other thing is we are gonna have a lot of pushback is it's gonna be the operating expenses. But every park has operating expenses. I need to do my homework and research how much it costs to operate McGee, McGo and McKee. They are all the community parks because so then we have an idea. Yes, every time that we build a new park, they have operating cost, okay? So, this park is going to have a little bit higher operating cost at the beginning because we need to buy some equipment, but it's a bigger shelter. But I am not concerned about that, because every park has operating expenses, you know what I mean? So, I think if we have an ice rink, the operating expenses they're higher, because we need to have a lot of more assistance in managing an ice rink. So I think it will be great to have that, but I want to remember, I would love to have everything, but I had to be practical and, and it's maybe something that we can add in the future, you know what I mean? But
Wade, is it something that would be easy to add in the future? I forgot what you said.
I don't believe so. I mean, I think we could potentially do like, it would, so what this is proposing is like the coils, like a built-in system. We couldn't do that. We could potentially maybe do like a temporary thing, but I don't know quite the cost or the logistics of all that, but potentially, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't look like that image, it would be a different scenario than that.
Personally, I think that option B with the full cover would be best, but would be best for the residents, would be best for the city of Fitchburg, but I personally would be in full, I'm actually more interested in voting for option A as far as what gets presented to council or other committees so that they can feel, free to pare it down as opposed to asking for less and then have them pare down the lower ask. So my vote as of right now in the discussion would be for option A.
I guess that's my vote too, because I guess my question here is, does it really matter for like what we recommend? I think my impression, I think from what Julia's saying is, I think council is going, they're really going to be strict about the cost and the expenses. And so does what we recommend really matter? I don't know how to phrase this, but I just want to recommend what I think is important for that community, the community that's been ignored for so long. And their job is to be more concerned about the expenses and what the budget will afford. So I think I'm more inclined to request that we approve everything.
Elizabeth?
Yes, I'll just respond to that. I totally agree with Ryan. It's really important to fund this in a neighborhood that has been neglected for decades now. I wonder, as a committee, I'm looking forward to any sort of influence that we could have going forward and asking the question of, if we always go for broke, does that influence how our recommendations may be taken going forward? And maybe it doesn't. I'm brand new to this, but that was the question I was asking myself, is if we go for broke, does it compromise us going forward and all other asks?
Katie?
I had the same question.
Yeah. Wade, did you have a comment?
No, everything you said, I mean, you guys are, the new members here, you're astute. You understand what's happening here. And yeah, I don't have anything to offer. Councils change every 2 years. Yeah, I guess I'll just leave it there. Yeah.
I would say that, because of that thought that I have that Elizabeth shares, I still think that option B plus full
coverage is my vote.
Well, could you clarify what that option is? So it's option B plus full coverage, and then would that eliminate the track then? Is that what we're talking about?
No.
So hold on, I can pull up option B.
Oh, just,
So it'd basically be, so it'd be option B, but instead of the half cover, it'd be the full cover. And just so people are clear, if you don't do A, B, or C, we'll call it the D. That's the pick your own, and then we'll just be clear on what that D is, so.
Yeah. I like option B plus the full cover because I feel like that's, so it would be like just under $1 million in borrowing. And that feels like more doable, especially considering like, you know, we'll be taking in, you know, annexing part of the town of Madison and just like all these expenses coming up and just like, yeah, the realities of costs just going up in general over the lifetime of this project, like that, it feels more like a decent compromise.
And that's a good point too, and I didn't talk about it earlier, but you know, when we talk about phasing or pushing things out, you know, costs will continue to rise. You know, I don't know when inflation will get reeled in, but you know, that's an issue as well, so.
I guess I can go along with that option.
Please feel free though to push back if people think we should just go for broke. I mean, I'm brand new to this and I don't know what to do here.
No, Elizabeth, I was thinking about the same thing about, yeah, where does that, if we go all out, where does that put us with council and for future recommendations? So that is something to consider, I think.
Yeah, and that's like the only thing that's really holding me back, like from doing option A, is because I was like, option B, it's like I can like write a note and, you know, an email to council and feel really like secure and like this is exactly why I'm justifying it. Like $2 million in borrowing, like that's where I start to go like, yeah, I don't know.
Something else. The city is planning to invest $25 million in a public safety building in next 2 years. So I think, you know, I think $2 million for a park in an area where we haven't invested, or there is no Fitchburg City Park in, I don't know, 20, 30 years. There is no comparison. So.
Julia, are you trying to get us to go for broke now?
I am mentioning you that we need to talk about, I look at priorities, okay? I represent that district right now, okay, since November. I sent my kid to Leopold School. I was involved with the PTO there, so I know that community. I know the community that live there, the needs. Those people sometimes don't have time to come to city council and voice their opinions because they are working 2-3 times part-time job. So this is I have the voice, you know? And I think this is an investment. It's not an expense. This is an investment in our community in an area that we, council, decided a couple of years ago to develop, to create a vision. We spent $70,000 with a consultant, Vanderwell Associate, to build the vision for the corridor. We spent $30 million in the Fish Hatchery Road reconstruction to bring development. Development is coming, but we need to provide recreational opportunity to that area. It's period, you know what I mean? So if you're talking about 30 million, 25 million, and $2 million, I'm gonna say, you know, as a taxpayer of the city of Fitchburg, I say, this is a great investment. And also, many people are thinking, oh, those area in that area is not a safe area. The kids there, they don't have anything to do. It's summertime and all these criminal activities start happening in Fitchburg. We need to look for options. We need to look for other. Yeah, this is another option. You know, this is another option. We are providing a place where the youth can go and play it. They have a basketball court. There is no basketball court there. The tennis court that they are there belongs to a private development. You need to live in that apartment complex to use it. No one uses them. They cannot even go and play in the 9 spring golf because they need to pay to go there in summertime. So we are providing some opportunity where people can gather. We can bring more activity to that area. Youth have a place to play with bicycle, with skateboard, you know. So I don't know why people cannot see why it's so important to invest there. You know what I mean? I don't know why. So I am very frustrated right now. I want to tell you that. Very frustrated because I don't understand. You know, and also, you know, it's not fair that the best park in our city are in the wealthy neighborhood. This is the other reality, and we need to see it, and we have to say it aloud. Someone had to say it aloud, and I want to say it. It's not fair, because I also receive when I talk to people in the north part of Fish Hatchery, they say the city doesn't care about that. They care about the homeowner. They care about the people in the rich area. You know what I mean? So I am listening to the people that live in the North Fish Hatchery Road too. So, this is what I hope you understand. My frustration is I don't know why people cannot see the benefit of building this park in that area. You know, this is what I will need all your support on May 10. And more people that bring, you know, the better, but because we need to build this park.
So Julia, just to clarify, what option are you in favor of?
Don't think about me. Think about what do you want, okay? What do you want? You want A or B with the hardcover? Fine. You know, but it's what do you think is the best option for that area? You know, so it's what, you know, I want to remove myself from you know, I don't want to, you know, I want to remove myself, but I want you to, you say, we want this package, okay, great, we move forward.
Wait, can you go back to option A again and just help to highlight the difference between A and B?
Yeah, so really, A is ice rink with full covered hard court. And then B is just going to be no ice rink and partial hard court.
I think line C4 is.
And I think what also is kind of being discussed is, let's call it between A and B. So like a no ice rink, but a full covered structure. So that's kind of between A and B. So in my head, those are the three options that have kind of been discussed thus far.
I guess I just want to say that my support for option B with the full cover was not in any way reflective of what I think this neighborhood deserves or would benefit from. It was a reflection of my limited understanding as a newbie about what might be politically feasible, and also a reflection of Julia's initial statement about what she was sort of hoping for.
Yeah, for me, supporting option B with the hard court, like, I feel like that feels like it's the most politically feasible option and preserves as much of the original plan as possible. And I think it feels to me that if we always go for broke, that it will over time like degrade the power of this committee. And so I want to preserve that and also push for, as much as possible. But yeah, it's, to the points about, where there's been historical investment and not, like, I totally agree with that. And I think there are issues and they need to be addressed and righted.
I can work on encouraging some of the students in my classes to write letters and say how awesome a skating rink would be, how awesome an all-wheels track would be. Ooh, yes, I can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
And Wade, if I understand correctly, then B plus the full cover would be what was previously approved, just at a different price tag.
So you mean, so the covered structure was never accounted for in the budget? It was in the design, in the concept design, but it was never budgeted for. But again, it was presented, it's been part of the discussion all along. So it's not gonna be, a surprise to anybody that people are in favor of that thing, so.
I kind of get the feeling that we're landing on option B with the full cover. I think all of us probably want everything. But thinking about the future of this committee and our work with the council, I think it might be the wisest move to go with B with the full cover. So I think I'm going to go ahead and make that motion.
Ryan, could I just ask you, call it option D with, let's just call it the same as option B, but with a full covered hard court, just so we're clear on.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I would like to make a motion to approve option B with the full cover.
Actually, it'd be option D, I'm sorry.
Option D, I'm sorry. Okay,
Yep.
Option D. Is it just option D?
I guess, not to get too wordy, but it'd be option D to reflect the same as option B, with the exception of a full cover and not a partial covered hard court. You can just say option D with a partial or a full covered hard court. How about that?
All right. I'm gonna try and I'm gonna make a motion to approve option D with the full covered hard court.
I
Have a
second.
second? Yeah. All right, Katie seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Say
Nay.
Okay. With one abstention, or sorry, with one nay. Anyone abstaining? No. All right. So motion passes. All right. So now we are moving on to, I believe it's, agenda item 6, report from the department.
And I won't keep you guys here much longer. This is probably one of the longest meetings you'll be in as a part of this committee. There's a lot of stuff you covered tonight and a lot of meaningful stuff. So I appreciate your commitment tonight. So just so folks know, I think folks do know I'll be leaving the city. Want to thank you all for your support and of my work. And I know for the new folks, I wish I could stick around to work with you. You guys seem like a good, thoughtful group to work with. And we'll miss the city. But I guess with that in mind, I guess, I imagine there's probably some not concern, but just questions about where this committee goes from here and the work, where does the work go from here? So I thought I was going to maybe, again, we can talk about as much as this as you want, but I think I'll just field any questions you might have. And then I think, in the next couple of weeks, I'll be putting together kind of an outline in terms of where I see this work going in the city. And to be honest, there might be some pauses in some of the work. But I will, again, we can talk about as much of that as you want now or not at all. But then I will put that together and you guys will see that. And then when you meet again, you can discuss, where all that stuff goes. So yeah, with that, again, I just want to thank everybody for, it's great to work with you. Some longer than others, but yeah, just thank you, so. Still
thank
working
you.
it out, but I believe
Yeah.
probably sometime that second week of May.
After the 10?
And then I'm gonna go to Norway, hopefully, Julia, for a month, for 3 weeks, so. yeah.
Okay, after the 10.
Going on a hike.
Okay, so after the 10. And then,
What-
when is our next meeting?
So it's not yet scheduled. You guys could set that date now, if you want.
Okay.
It wouldn't, well, I mean, you would either be with me in the very near term or without me sometime later this year, so,
Okay.
yep.
So I want to say thank you, Wade, for all the work that you have done. I not only from the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative, but all the other projects, working in parks. You also are doing the park refresh, parks plan refresh. So you're working on that, you work in the redistricting committee, so you work in the planning department, so you're doing a lot of things here, and I will miss you. I think you were, these projects are the way they are because of you, so I will thank you, and I don't want you to go, but you know what I mean? Who knows? Maybe our path will cross again in the future, but I wish you the best, okay? So.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I need to make a public disclosure that I forgot to do. Some of the not-for-profit organizations that requested funds, they were audited by the company that I work, Wagner CPAs, but I don't work in that department, so I don't have any contact with those. So we discussed that in the past because there is no any conflict of interest, but I need to make public disclosure that I work for the company of some of these organizations are audited, so.
Do I need to make a public disclosure that I?
No, maybe Wade can add it in the minutes that I did that.
Sure. Is there something
Okay.
you're concerned about, or?
Well, just that I work at Aldo Leopold and they were also asked for a grant.
Okay,
So.
you have to say it.
Yep, I'll note that.
Okay, great.
So any, I guess, questions on kind of H&I, where it goes from here, or?
Yeah, I was wondering, like, so if you're leaving mid-May, then if we had like one, like, let's say like quick meeting before then to kind of like go through like the outline and just see if there's anything, basically to prep us for like what we can do to help continue this work moving forward in the interim. And do you have a sense also of, and so I wanted to like ask the committee basically if they would be interested in having a meeting in early May to do that. And then also, Wade, I was wondering, do you have a sense of when they would be looking to fill your position? I know there's often a bit of a lag.
Yeah, well, I gave my notice. I believe there's, to be honest, I don't know if my position was, I came here and I kind of, I did the things I needed to do, but then I created some new stuff.
Yeah.
I hope this committee being part of that, and I hope those priorities will continue within my department and the broader city, but there may be a few things I'm working on that, might get shifted or put on temporary hiatus, even with when a new person comes on. But I don't really know what the time frame is. I would imagine in the next, again, I've given them, a month and a half, given the city quite a bit of lead time, so I would think not soon after I leave, they would have a replacement for me, so.
All right. So,
Oh,
Yeah.
Emily, do you want to have another meeting before he goes, so we have an idea what we need to do?
that was my idea, if people are open to
Sure.
it, and just like having it, be short, maybe even like half hour, no more than an hour.
I think it makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, again, our normal schedule is first Tuesday of the month, so I think the 3rd would be fine by me if that works for you all. And yeah, I envision it just being, I'll have something prepared and then we can discuss it and that should be it, so. Yep,
Okay.
Which day?
it could be the 3rd.
Yeah, that would work for me. All right. I guess I should ask any concerns with that timing.
I will say I have a final the next day, but
Okay.
I can make it work.
Well, or what, I can also plan to just take notes and I can share those with you.
Okay.
Yeah, because studying is very important too. So not that you shouldn't come, but like if we can help you out.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Great. So yeah, let's do that then.
Can you send a reminder tomorrow?
Yep,
right,
I'll
to
do
all of
that,
us? Okay,
sure.
thank you.
All right. Any other questions people have or?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any announcements, Wade?
Nope, I think I just gave my big one, so.
All right. So then can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
A second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion passes.
Bye, people.
Thanks, Wade.